Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the House of Auger Show. And I am your host, the man of the house, JT Auger. And with me tonight are my co-hosts, Joel, Adam, Sativa, Amanda, and I think Adam the Hood will be with us later, but he was busy getting murderers acquitted. So he's going to be a little late. You know how that goes. Anyway, sorry, I'm reading chat as I'm going. So, co-hosts, say hello.
What's up, y'all?
Hello.
Hello. This is going to be I'm excited about this episode. There's a lot of new stuff going on with the show. Well, with the server, the Discord server. Anyway,
hey, what's the right chat to be in?
The HOA show chat.
Fuck is it?
It should be under the voice channels. You'll see it directly above HOA radio chat. So when you connect,
I got it.
Okay. And that's for everybody. So there's a lot
very
of new
confusing now. Yes,
I know. I will make it unconfusing when I explain it all. But just know for now, the correct chat to be in for the show is the HOA show chat. That chat channel, that text channel is right above the HOA radio chat voice channel. You'll see it. So when you go to connect to the radio chat so that you can hear us, you'll see the text channel right above it because they're connected. Anyway, disclaimers for the show. This is not a family fucking friendly show. We talk a lot of shit. We talk about a lot of horrible shit. So if you are easily offended or a child, please get the fuck out. We are recording live. I don't know that we're live streaming, but we are recording both audio and video, which means. I'm sorry, what?
We are not live streaming, but we are recording. But go on with what you were about to say.
So the recording that we're doing is going to be both audio and video, which means we're recording the chat channel. So that's going to everything that you and post.
Hey, hold on. I couldn't. That you dropped out on me there, so you may want to say that again.
Okay, so everything that you say or post is going to be on the recording when we put it up on YouTube. That's for your own benefits, just so you know. So if there's anything personal or anything that you don't want shared.
Yeah, I still think this is a terrible idea, by the way.
Why?
Because people are less likely to speak their mind knowing that it's going to be put on YouTube and can be put back to them.
If it makes you feel better, our YouTube channel has a grand total of 0 views. So
yeah, I'm just saying it's it's something to consider.
Probably not the biggest deal, but
what? Are you putting the mic to your face again? Because it sounds low.
I keep moving my face over to it. Is this okay now?
Yeah. Oh, you're eating.
I got something to move your face to.
So, anyway, at least for tonight, and we can discuss this in the Facebook group with you guys if you would prefer. If you have, maybe we can put up a poll and see if people would prefer to not have the audio, or I'm sorry, not have the video recording of the chat as it goes. If that's preferable, we'll go that way in the future. But for tonight, we're going to record the chat.
I mean,
so
I don't have to upload the video, by the way. I can just separate the audio out as I've been doing.
Okay.
And so we can resolve this later. But but on the off chance that your that the chat does get recorded, then treat the chat accordingly.
Okay. Boy, we are stumbling tonight. Okay, so here's what's happening. There are renovations to this Discord server, as some of you have already noted. It looks a lot different, and there's good reason for that, and it's all a positive thing. I promise. This is all thanks to, I'd like to give a couple of shout outs. Number one, the person responsible for kind of pushing me towards making these changes was Robin, better known as Betty. I don't think she's here. She was here earlier. I don't know if she's in chat though, or in the radio. No, she's not here. So, but she was the one who said, hey, you know what? It would be good to have a lot of different text channels. And she showed me some other Discord servers, and I saw her point. The main reason for a lot of these changes is to make this a more viable server on an everyday basis. Up to this point, it has been bare bones because all we use this for is Tuesdays between 6 and 9 to do the show. This makes this a place that everybody can kind of talk and interact and engage, even when the show's not going on. So what I've done, and I want to thank also John Mark Adams, who helped me with the music side of things. He gave me some suggestions that I absolutely love. But anyway, so you will notice there's a couple of different categories, and each category has a few different text channels to it. The first, of course, being administration at the very top, which rules of the show, which you'll notice, or rules of the Discord server, which currently there aren't any, but I will make some because I'm like, what rules? I guess don't be a dick. That'll probably be the only rule I can think of. There's a bulletin board, which all the show advertisements and promos and announcements will be made. There's the study, which is and all of these text chat channels I tried to theme like you're actually in a house because I'm stupid. The study is where you get your show suggestions, so anything that you any ideas for topics, or if you'd like to volunteer to be a guest, or if there's anything that you would like to recommend to us, please, that would be the place for that to go. Then there's two different wings. There's the West Wing and the East Wing. The West Wing has all of the mostly safe for work text channels. And when I say mostly, it's because I can't guarantee that everything that's going to go into these text channels is going to be safe for work. It's just, it seems to me, based on the themes, they probably for the most part will be. The kitchen is the general chat room because, you know, that's where everybody goes to talk, is the kitchen. The war room is the news and stuff. Billiard room, gaming. The library is self-explanatory. The lab is the science discussion. Dark secret place is for conspiracy theories. I'll spend most of my time in there. Joel will never ever meet me in there.
Correct.
I'm gonna at him every time I post in there.
I have my Discord notifications turned off, so you can't.
I'll make posts in the Facebook group. Hey Joe, I posted in the in the secret place. You need to go every time I do it. So then there's the there's the East Wing. Sorry, I forgot where I was. Which is the not safe for work stuff. There's the bathroom, which is where the memes and the shit posting goes. That's some of these text channels. You'll notice if you peruse them, some of them are already kind of barren, not much going on. Some of them have already been very, very used, which is apropos. The bathroom, memes and shit posting. The bedroom is all the not safe for work stuff. That is the most used room. And it's not even by me. Like, there are tons of pictures in there already.
Oh, so yeah. If there's one thing our audience loves, it's porn.
It really, yes. Yes, our audience is degenerate, and I love them for it. Then there's the mirror. That's selfie center. So all of the... Here's what I'm thinking. For all of the lewd stuff that you don't want to get zucked for on Lude's Day, or if you just want to post when it's not Lude's Day, whatever. Or if you just, this would be the place where you can go and it's safe to post and people from the group will know that's where it's at. That's another reason that I did all this, was because this makes this a more viable place for everybody to go and not worry about getting zucked for stuff, because auto zuck's getting worse and worse, y'all. Like, I'm getting zucked for telling people they're dumber than a bag of hammers. I can't think of a stupider reason to get a 30-day ban. So this makes sense to kind of expand the Discord server so that people can use this more often if they would like to. Then there's the basement. That's everything death, gore, murder. I was tempted, Sativa, to call that Sativa's room because I figured that would be funny.
I mean, if we're going to be honest, that's where I'm going to spend all my time. You should just rename it the Face Chamber.
You know what? Sativa's Chamber of Death, something like that.
Yep. Yeah, that's my shit. We all know it.
Right. I've already posted. I posted a bunch of stuff in there just maybe an hour ago. That's going to be related to one of the topics that we're going to discuss today. There's some links here and there throughout those text channels related to topics, and that's typically where you'll find them prior to showtime. So, and then there's the back house, which is all music. The studio is the text channel for anything, any music links, any discussion about music. Then we have the Rhythm Bot. The Rhythm Bot is thanks to John Mark Adams. That's what plays music now while you're in chat. Now, or while you're in the voice channels. Now, here's the thing. There's a dedicated Rhythm Bot for the HOA radio chat that only the ad mods can use. That way we can avoid all of you trying to play music while we're trying to do the show. Because some of you are trolls, and I can't trust you. So I went ahead and just I gave you guys a Rhythm Bot that you can use in the general voice chat, which you'll find under the voice chat channels, or voice channels now. There's a general voice chat. That's open to everyone, and nobody's muted, right? So, like, when the show's not going on, if you guys want to hop on there and talk to each other or play music, whatever, the Rhythm Bot, if you go under the Rhythm Bot text channel, you will see that if you scroll to the very top, there's a list of commands. The way it works is you summon it. So you go into a voice chat channel, like you would go into into general voice, and then you would go into the Rhythm Bot text channel, and you command the Rhythm Bot from there. So in the text channel for Rhythm Bot, you would use the designator, the exclamation point, and then put play, and you can type whatever you want and it'll play it. It doesn't have to be music. It could be, because it plays off of SoundCloud. I don't think it does Spotify, but it's SoundCloud and YouTube mostly, I think, is what it plays off of. So you can play speeches or whatever, any audio files, whatever. So that's kind of neat. It's fun. I've been toying around with it. But yeah, those are the changes mostly. If there's, do you have any questions about the changes, or to my co-hosts, do you have any? Did I help seem a little less confusing, or did I make it more confusing?
Sure.
Adam, I already don't like the chat on YouTube just from that comment.
Yeah, we already
had comment?
Somebody posted something semi-pornographic, so I had to delete it just in case this is going on YouTube. This is the bad thing about the video recording thing, if we do end up doing that. So we'll have that discussion in the group later on.
Yeah, maybe. Shit. So you can separate the two now?
Yeah, I can just rip the audio from the video recording. And
okay.
Not post the video.
Then maybe, because I don't want people to worry and cause them to restrict themselves from what they'll say or post.
Yeah, that's
true. I want it to be kind of free form and available for everyone to be themselves. So if it's a concern for anybody, then I guess we should go ahead and just not record the audio or the video of the chat. So there will not be...
also, Augie, I was going to say, you could also go in and blur out a thing later. I don't know.
Well, I can't.
I wouldn't
be the one doing that. That would be
not with
Adam.
that attitude.
I don't know how. I don't know that how difficult that is, and I don't know if he's willing to do all that, depending on the difficulty. So that's really
I've never done
it
something like that, and that
seems
sounds
more
like way
trouble
too
than it's
much work
worth.
for something that's going to get 0 views on YouTube. So I'm gonna pass.
Yeah. So, again, any questions regarding the changes? Does it make sense to everybody? Is everybody cool? Wow,
Yeah, we're good.
Very,
don't ever,
very
don't everybody speak
enthusiastic.
at once. All right, so wow, we've got quite a few people in tonight. Cool. If you have questions about the changes, please be sure to post them in the HOA show chat as we're doing the show. I will be more than happy to elaborate or clarify if there's anything that you have a question about. So that being said, let's get into some topics. I want to talk first about stuff that doesn't matter. And of those things, I think there's really just one thing. Did anybody, I just want to get it out of the way. Did anybody watch the Oscars?
Nope.
No, we're gay.
Yeah, no, I didn't watch them either. I don't think I've watched the Oscars since I was like in my early teens. But I heard it was bad. I heard I heard that they didn't have a host, and it went hostless. I don't know how well that turned out. I heard that the
Apparently that actually went well, not having a
Oh,
host.
really?
Yeah, because it went and made it go a little quicker.
Which that's always a plus.
Right, because it's usually like a 4.5 hour show. It's ridiculous.
Right. How long was it then?
I don't know. I didn't look for the times. I saw an article talking about how not having hosts turned out to be a decent thing. So I read that.
I've heard that the for years now, for a good few years, the Oscars viewership has been continuously dropping year after year. So I don't know. I think people are just tired of watching the pretentiousness of it. Like you're all glad handing and patting yourselves on the back for how great you are and how rich you are and how famous you are. Like, wait, I don't give a shit. Like, why? And then you want to take time out of your day from raping one another to tell the rest of us, to lecture us on our politics and our way of life, and it's a little too, thanks but no thanks. I don't need, and on top of that, like, it doesn't seem like it's a very legitimate it's not a contest. What awards? It doesn't seem like it's a legitimate awards show where it's based on legitimate judgment. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, but didn't Black Panther get the best film award of the year? That's of all the films made in the year, Black Panther, a fucking superhero movie.
That didn't win Best Picture.
Oh, it didn't.
It was nominated. No, Green Book.
Yeah, it was nominated.
It's a nomination.
Green Book.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
The movie that no one had heard of until it was nominated.
Oh, what? Wait, what was it that won?
Green Book.
Oh yeah, the one about the guy who drives the white guy who drives the black guy around. It's the reverse Miss Daisy.
Right.
All right. Well, that's a little better, I guess. I don't know. I haven't seen that. Did anybody see that?
No, I hadn't even heard of it until last week.
Oh my god, that's so funny. And that Aragon's in that. Viggo Mortensen, right?
I don't remember who was in it. I saw things about it when it first came out, and they were like, "Oh, it's Oscar bait," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not interested," so I didn't really pay attention.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Viggo Mortensen drives around some black dude. I think it's the black guy from True Detective, the series. I think it's the same guy.
I think it may be.
Which, so yeah, okay. So there was some black actor and I posted pictures of this. Where did I post them? I think I posted them in either general chat. Yeah, it's in general chat here. Let me bring it over to HOH chat. Hang on a second. There's Billy Porter, who I have no idea who that is. But he is an actor who was there on the red carpet, and he posted on his Twitter that he wore some outfit, which let me show you guys what he wore. It's this amalgamation of a velvet suit on the top and then a velvet puffy dress at the bottom. And he was so excited about his little ensemble that he posted that on Twitter, and I was like, okay, I guess. And then a bunch of women went in pantsuits, and they oohed and awed over like the reverse gender role thing that ties into, I guess. Which what does that have to do with Hollywood Awards? I don't. Whatever, I guess. But
like, I saw his outfit. I actually thought it was cool. I liked it.
Does he?
Like, I think it was a big deal, but I thought it was neat looking.
I mean, if apparently he's a straight male. I don't know that that's true. That's from what I understand. I don't even know who this guy is. I wouldn't wear that, even if I had his body, which I don't. Even if I could make it look good, I don't know. It's just not for me. Like, if I were gay, maybe, like, that seems like something that would be really fun to wear if I were a drag queen. Maybe.
That thing was way too low key to be a drag queen.
That looks like an awesome drag queen funeral dress. It really does. I think that would be.
Just not enough sequins.
Not enough sequins. Yeah, so I don't. Does he have pants under it, or is it bare? I don't know, man. I don't know, and I don't want to know.
Hello, it's the Oscars. He had Spanx.
So what was funny to me is, because I didn't know who he was, I thought I'll scroll through his Twitter, and there'll be something about a show he's in, a movie he's been in, something. So that I'll be able to say, oh, that's who Billy Porter is. I swear to God, I scrolled through dozens upon dozens of retweets from this guy of other people posting about him in that dress and those pictures. It was constant. It got to the point where I was just like, fuck it, I don't care anymore. I've been scrolling forever, and all I see are these pictures. And I'm like, dude, this is the most masturbatory bullshit. Like, this is the narcissism central. It's dozens upon how many different tweets do you need about pictures of you
stunning
in a fucking
and
velvet
brave.
dress?
Stunning and brave.
I don't know about brave. I mean, like I said, like, for me, that's not
as brave as our soldiers storming Normandy, liberating Europe in World War II. He is on that level. That's the kind of bravery we are talking about here.
Oh my God. Yeah, like, for me, I don't look at it as like this huge social commentary thing. I thought that I liked his outfit, and I thought it was pretty cool that it was a dude under it. Like, that's it. But that's in the grand scheme of, like, I mean, it's fashion. Who gives a shit? We've got people walking down runways in literal plastic tubing and garbage bags.
And trash. Yes.
But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I thought it was a very nicely put together garment. I thought that it looked classy. I think that obviously it would not have gotten as much attention if it were not on a dude, but I thought it was a really cool look. Yeah, like, overall, I fucking dug it. And that's not about, like, my weird thing with gay dudes or anything. It just, like, I thought it was a really cool fucking dress. Like, 10 points to the guy for wearing a cool dress, but I think obviously,
you know what? And that's fine.
It's 2019. It's fucking brave. It's it's not brave. It's virtue signaling in its most basic fucking form. But
that's the I just
literally, just as a dude in a dress, I liked the dress. I don't know who the dude is, but I thought he looked nice in his dude dress.
So, Face, I don't think I quite understand. Are you saying that you liked the dress?
I am saying that I liked the dress.
All right, I just wanted to.
It was a good
to make
dress.
sure that's what you're saying, because I wasn't sure if that's what you were saying.
Just being clear, that behind any of the social commentary that goes with it or any of that bullshit. But I liked the dress, and I liked
Yeah,
that
I
he
didn't
was
like the
wearing it.
propaganda that went with it.
And
I
you
didn't
know what
like.
I loved the most about it? What I really actually loved about it was that he looked completely comfortable in it. Like, because you look down the red carpets at the Oscars, because I don't watch that shit, but sometimes I peep the the red carpet pictures and all that, just because it's interesting
Sure.
sometimes to see what kind of train wrecks they show up in, especially
Sure.
when they've paid people to put it together for them. But no, I just like he just looked comfortable. Like he didn't look super out of place in it. And half the chicks rolling
You're right,
around in those
Dr. Fella.
dresses, they look uncomfortable and weird. So I just thought it was cool that he was just kind of standing there chilling in his cool dude dress. So I thought it was great looking.
Cool is being used very flexibly there, but
Well, Adam, I don't know if you know this, but I'm pretty goddamn flexible.
oh, I know.
Yeah, you do.
Oh wow, wow.
I just made Augie uncomfortable again.
No, you. I don't think you can make me uncomfortable.
Challenge.
So, on to things that do matter.
Well, may I comment
Michael-
real quick?
Oh yeah, please do.
Sorry, one of the things that I think we talked about is it's more so the afterthought, the reaction later. It wasn't so much in the moment. It wasn't any grand social commentary or anything. But as you were talking about, as you were scrolling through his Twitter, it's just endless retweeting of just this. And I think at some point, it's the difference between appreciating feedback and trying to push it as if this was just mind-boggling thing and it was just so amazing.
Yes, and that's what I was definitely going to say. Think what you like about the dress. My issue with it was the propaganda that went with it and the narcissism that was on display. Just God.
Yeah, as you said, it was very masturbatory.
If I wore an outfit I liked, I would maybe post a picture and be like, "Hey, look." But to retweet dozens of tweets about yourself in a dress, I don't know. That just. Ugh. But anyway, like I said, that it doesn't matter, and he doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter. So, all right. Here's a curious thing: Michael Cohen is testifying privately with the the Senate tonight, and then he'll be all over the news tomorrow testifying publicly and from what I understand, he's going to be testifying to his experience during his time as Trump's lawyer, which I don't know how that's going to work. Like, isn't there a client
confidentiality?
Yeah, there's a confidentiality. Like, how much can you really share? I don't understand. And doesn't this violate that if he starts to share things? I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm interested.
If only we had a lawyer amongst us who could clarify.
I don't think he's here yet, is he?
He's not.
He's there. At least he's
there he is.
But
he's here?
Yeah, there he is. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if LaHood wants to say anything regarding it, but I'm curious. From what I understand, Michael's going to talk about stuff like Trump cheating. I don't know how that happened. What does that have to do with anything? Who gives a fuck? People, does it have anything to do with him, like, committing treason? Did he do that? Did he rig the election? Did he, somehow break international law of any sort? Did he do those things? I don't give a fuck who he kissed and paid off. I don't care.
Yeah. That's the thing.
Nobody
cares about this, right or left. Because, people on the right don't care because it's just it's genuinely just not an issue.
It's so bullshit. Like, there's
and then the left has built up the ending to this story to be Russian collusion, which him paying off Stormy Daniels would just be so anticlimactic.
Yeah.
You can't have that kind of ending, Although I think they would be pretty satisfied with removing him in any way, but I don't know.
Bernie's running again.
That he is. And he's doing surprisingly well.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see who they rig it against. We'll see who they rig it for against him this time. Like, here's my thing. I don't care how well he's doing. You belong to a divided and split political party. There's just no unless you can unite your entire party to get behind you. There's you don't have a hope. You don't have a chance, and he's not going to do that. There's too many.
Yeah.
You got Kamala Harris. You got Cory Booker. I would love for fucking Hillary to say, "I'm going to run again," just to really drive it home, to just drive the entire Democratic hopes, all of their hopes, right into the fucking ground. Just nope. You might as well just call it now. Just pick somebody and give her a concession speech now and just be done with it, because you're fucking retarded if you think that there's any hope whatsoever of being. I mean, they say that, I guess Biden might. Did he say he was going to run? Did he?
He has not officially declared, but everyone thinks he will.
I've heard that he's
even paid a lot of lip service to the idea, so I think it's it's a short time away.
I've heard people say that they think he would be the one to unite the Dems. I don't know that that's true, because there's a real issue between the old guard and the new guard. AOC and these new extremist leftist Democrats, which, by the way, I want to talk about her for a minute. They don't, like, the old guard thinks they're crazy, and AOC and her fucking Democratic socialists think that the old guard is stupid and out of touch, and they're at war with each other. They really are. And AOC, I don't know how the fuck she's going to survive her term. So she kicked Amazon to the curb, costing New York, or is it New York or New Jersey?
New York. 25,000 jobs.
Yeah. Like, all the revenue that would have come with Amazon setting up shop in New York, she was instrumental in making sure that New York gets none of that. Like, nope, we don't want prosperity. We don't want jobs. Fuck you, Amazon, and fuck money. Like, she is. I gotta say, if there's one, she is all in on her, like, fuck capitalism perspective. Her political platform is she's all in on that for sure, and it's insane. I guess she was noted as there's video of her. I don't know. She was on stage somewhere, and she was bitching about the fact that there's been so much backlash about her Green New Deal, and said something like, "Well, you do it. If you're gonna bitch and moan about it, you do it. You're not doing it because you won't, because you can't. I'm doing it. So how about I'm the boss? Okay, I'm the one in charge." And it's a little too much. It's like, lady.
Yeah, there was so much wrong with that.
Yeah, you need to calm the fuck down, lady. Like, you're a bartender. She has gotten. You need to shut the fuck up.
Like, she came in very, like, confident and kind of sassy, but now she's just like, you can tell people are getting to her. Like, she is lashing out at everyone, and it's kind of amazing. It really didn't take long.
Did you see that she had said, I guess she was at home. She did some live stream of herself in her kitchen, and she's chopping vegetables as she's talking to people about Venezuela and socialism and whether or not you should have kids. And she kind of, roundabout, apparently kind of said, well, basically, like, it's understandable if you don't want to have kids, you shouldn't have kids. Because the world is shit, and like,
basically, like, because the world is going to end anyway. Like, why would you give your kids
the fuck?
a world like that? It's just Like, better to not
Is
have
that
them.
your is that your political platform? Don't have kids. The world is shit. Fuck it. Fuck everything. Like, what the fuck?
It's like, by all means, continue with that message, and I hope it catches on with her base, because God
Oh
forbid
my
they reproduce.
god, it's insane. So, speaking of which, this her views on children kind of ties into this. There was a bill. Hang on, I'm pulling it up now because I wanted to talk about this. There was a Born Alive bill that was blocked by the Democrats. Apparently, it was a Republican bill that would have threatened prison time for doctors who failed to try and save the life of infants born alive during failed abortions. And all but 3 Democrats voted against it, from what I understand, which leads people to wonder openly whether Democrats were embracing, are they embracing infanticide to appeal to left-wing voters?
It's hard to deny that at this point.
Right? It's really, I mean, and this is I don't know how to express how insane I feel this is. Like, that's the only argument I've heard that kind of makes sense is, well, it's already, a legal requirement that the doctor help the child, so there's no need for the bill. A legal requirement and criminally punishing someone for not doing it are 2 different things, from what I understand. So
yeah,
how anybody could say no, we shouldn't punish anybody who lets a baby die? I don't know. I don't understand. I don't know. I don't understand how anybody could vote against that. Like, where's the logic? Where's the reasoning? How is this a bad thing? How is it something we shouldn't have? I don't get it. I don't understand what the left is thinking. I really don't. And apparently none of you do either.
No,
Well,
I mean, it's
I think
crazy.
it's the topic of abortion, and it always comes back to, it's the woman's right, and the left is trying so hard to push that narrative that they are willing to sacrifice a lot of ideals and values and ethics in order to push it, because they know that the younger base basically has no qualms with abortion in any capacity. I'm pro-choice, but I can still recognize the consequences and the implications of too much freedom when it comes to abortion and what it means for the self,
right,
and the value of life.
My issue here is that we're not talking. This is no longer about abortion. This is about a child who's. This is post-abortion. You tried to abort, you fucked up, the kid's alive, now you have to save it. And if you don't, you could be criminally prosecuted. I love that idea. If you throw that, hey, if somebody were on the street and they said, hey, do you think it should be, we should be allowed to criminally prosecute any doctor who doesn't try and save a kid who survived an abortion? My immediate response would be, well, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, sure. Let's make sure they do that. Like, I can't imagine that there'd be a doctor who wouldn't, but I'm not going to say that doesn't exist. So sure, why not have that on the books? And that has nothing to do with abortion. So I don't understand. I don't know. I don't get the pushback. So anyway,
I don't know. Like,
moving on.
As a very pro-life person, I'm honestly glad that they are coming out as such extremists, because I honestly think that if they had stuck with their, position of, viability, anything past that is murder, but, anything before that is, should be legal.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, I mean, that stance has been pretty successful. I think it's wrong, but it's been successful. And now that they're coming out and saying, like, no, you can even, not only third trimester abortions, but post-birth, abortions, which isn't really abortion, it's infanticide.
Exactly.
That's kind of making a lot of people be like, wait, hold up. Like, I thought I was pro-choice, but is this what it means to be pro-choice? Like,
Exactly.
I don't
Eh,
know. And so, yeah, I mean, I think
Do
this
you
might
think
be
that
the
this is
thing
going to
that
have some
sparks
long?
actual
Do you
change.
think that this will have a long-term negative effect on the Democrats and the left politically and their ability to keep voters and supporters?
It depends on how punished they are in 2020. If they get blown out in 2020, then I think they will really have to take a look in the mirror. But I think that there's also the factor of how popular is Trump. And what I believe happened in 2018 was they all basically, came out in being unified in their hatred for Trump. It's not that their platform was good.
Yeah.
It's just that there's a lot of people that don't like Trump, and so they're going to vote for the other people. And if the same thing happens in 2020, then that will give them the false impression that, oh, people voted in favor of their radical agenda. When in reality, it's just like, no, people just wanted something that wasn't Trump. That's probably all it will boil down to.
Well, enough about politics for a little while. Let's talk about something a little more on the lighter side of things. Let's talk about
fucking
suicide.
mad going on that one.
What? What's that?
You're gonna get me fucking mad going on that one.
Why? Why are you mad? Are you in? Go ahead.
Because if it's an abortion, you shouldn't fuck it up, first of all. And if it comes out alive, who gets to take care of it? Put it in the fucking freezer like they do deformed puppies.
You can't. This isn't a puppy anymore. It's a human life.
It's not.
What do you mean it's not?
It's not supposed to be alive. It was supposed to be dead.
But it is alive. That's the thing.
So that's your punishment for fucking up, killing the thing while it was inside you. Now it gets to live. You don't get to decide to kill it after it survives, like the fucking thing survived.
No, we're gonna argue over the Auger.
Wow.
I swear to God. You know what? If you ever come to California, I'm going to fuck you and I'm going to argue about this while we have sex. I'm going to smack you around. I'm going to pull your hair. I'm going to be so mad. I'm going to angry fuck you as we talk about prostitution. Or not prostitution. Abortion. I'm mixing up my topics.
That I can't get fucking pregnant because I'm responsible like that shit. And for the people that aren't responsible like that shit, they shouldn't be tethered down with some stupid fucking sniveling thing. Give it to Amanda Usherwood.
You know what? If you wanted, you need to be fucking responsible then. Don't go willy-nilly just taking any dick unfucking covered. And get knocked up. If you get knocked up, that's your fucking fault. Are you pro-choice or anti-consequences? Which fucking one is it? You don't get to fucking do that. I swear to God.
Okay?
All right, let's talk about.
Her audio quality is just bad enough that I can't tell how genuine her yelling is.
I know.
I cannot tell how serious she's being, and
it's because I'm in my car and I have to use my car's Bluetooth.
Oh.
Okay.
Believe
You either
me,
sound very angry or very committed to this bit.
So, let's talk about suicides and overdoses. There was a comedian who was found dead in his LA home. No. I'm talking about Bourdain's a chef. He's not a comedian. No, this was Brody Stevens. Exactly. That was my response to that too. I was like, who?
Yeah, who?
Apparently, I guess he was he played a cop in The Hangover. I don't remember. I'd have to watch it again because I've seen pictures of him. Here, let me take the link. I'm gonna copy that. There's a link in the basement text channel, but I'm going to post it here as well. Right now. So this comedian, I guess he's like 42 or something. I don't know. Some of you might recognize him. He kind of looks familiar. Not really. I didn't know. I don't know any. I didn't know anything about his comedy actor or his comedy stylings, whatever. But I read about him dying. He was yeah. See, I don't recall him. He played a cop in The Hangover, and I don't remember him. I mean, maybe that's why he committed suicide, because he nobody knows who the fuck he is. But I did take a moment to try and do a little research, and he has a half an hour show. He's got several stand-up routines on YouTube. A lot of people are sad about this. Well, a lot of comedians.
When somebody dies,
What?
everybody's sad, but nobody cares.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, there are so many people in this
I've
world
watched-
that one person dying is like,
It's
that's
only
sad.
sad because he has a small following. It's not sad because he's a dead human. It's only sad because he had a small following.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess I
You
mean
know, we could all be off ourselves and nobody would give a shit.
it is kind of sad, but it's also kind of funny. I mean, it's interesting to think that the one thing that he's known for is not his comedy, but the fact that he committed suicide. Like, that's the funniest thing he's done yet. I watched 5 minutes of his half an hour show, his half hour comedy special on YouTube, and after 5 minutes, I turned it off and I thought to myself, oh, well, that's why. Like, there was nothing. I don't think he's funny. I don't, but I mean, I guess from what I understand, it's when he's off script and not telling his bits, but when he gets angry, he goes off script and just kind of rants and raves. Apparently that's when he's funny. I haven't seen it, so I just thought that was curious. It's always funny when a comedian dies. But here's one that's even funnier, and this one's close to home. This is a KTLA newscaster. Oh, God damn it, where did it go? Hang on, I'm gonna bring up you're gonna love this, you guys. This is fucking amazing.
I've been trying to think of a pun for a dead comedian, and it just hasn't happened yet.
A LA news anchor died from a meth overdose, but it gets better. I'm gonna here's the link. So I want to read this to you
God, he looks
guys.
like his name's Rich.
So, a Los Angeles news actor died in December after overdosing on methamphetamines during a sexual encounter with a male companion at a California hotel, an autopsy report revealed Friday. Glendale police were called to a Days Inn hotel around 1:15 p.m. on December 27th. I only heard about this recently, so I don't know if they kept this hush-hush and it just finally broke out, or maybe I missed this. This was written or published February 22nd, but he died in December, I guess. So anyway, police showed up to find KTLA news anchor Christopher Burrows, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, unresponsive and suffering from a medical emergency, officials said in a press release. Police say a male who'd been with Burrows at the time placed the call. Burrows was
Hotel California.
Here's the thing. According to the report, Burrows was engaging in various sexual activities with his companion when he inserted a rock of meth into his rectum, I guess to liven things up and loosen things up.
Wow, really Hotel California.
Yeah, he reportedly inserted a second rock. There's your mistake, buddy. That's a one rock deal. That's a 2 rocks is too many. That's one rock too many. He inserted a second rock later on in the encounter, placed a mask on, like a fucking from what I've heard, it was a like a sex mask, like the latex kind or leather like kind. Yeah. He placed this mask on and doused the filters in the mask. I guess it has filters with poppers. Now, I've heard that that's a thing. I recently just found this out, that this is a common thing among the homosexuals. They like to use poppers, which is amyl nitrate. I guess it makes things. I guess it's a real good high and gets them all relaxed and ready to be butt fucked.
Like a whip canister? Is that what a popper is?
What? Like
it's like
whippets.
Yeah, whip it. Okay.
Right, but I guess it's not exactly the same. But it's similar. I don't know. I've never done poppers. I've done whippets, like
not yet.
Years,
oh boy, we're gonna
years
do that
and years ago. What'd you say?
I said, not yet, homeboy. We're doing that shit.
Face is calling you out, by the way.
Damn it, Pony Girl! I swear to God, I am fixated. So Burroughs began to grunt and vomit before becoming unresponsive. From what I understand, he like threw up in his mask, and the male individual tried to perform CPR on Burroughs before the paramedics arrived.
How many rocks did he have in his butt?
They have yet to say. I don't know if they were both doing it, but certainly Burroughs was. He survived, and here's the best part. This is at the very end, and it's the only time they mention any of this. He is survived by his wife and a daughter, 9 years old.
No.
Oh.
Yeah, baby.
No.
So when little Sarah says, "Mom, why isn't Daddy coming home?" Well, baby girl, let me tell you, your daddy and Uncle Gerald got really high, and they died while they were butt fucking each other.
God. That's how we need to go.
Seriously, like, is there any better way than just overdosing during sex? Which is why the next topic is sex and drugs.
Do you think that he was getting butt fucked while he started to grunt and vomit? Do you think the guy didn't notice until it was too late?
Maybe.
Do you think
That's entirely possible, yeah.
No, from what I understand, from everything that I've heard, because I've been listening to reports of this, it sounds like this was all during the prep stage. So he put the rocks up his butt, he put on the mask.
You're telling me that meth was foreplay?
Yeah, that's some intense foreplay.
It can be. I mean, shit, anything can be. For some people, a good ass beating is foreplay.
Oh my God, the meth rocks for foreplay.
Yeah, so I guess while he was waiting for while his partner was waiting for Burroughs to be like, okay, I'm good and high and ready to go. I guess instead of hearing Burroughs say, "I'm ready," he heard, and that alerted him to the fact that something was wrong. And then.
Okay. Real quick off topic, and then we can continue. Do you remember the green text post about the butt sneeze?
No. What the fuck?
God, I'll have to find that. That's all I can think about.
You're adorable.
Do you care to share this with the class, or are you just going to laugh to yourself?
I'm driving. I can't look it up. I'll have to find it.
Oh my God. You leave us rough stuffers alone, Augie. Hey, no, I got nothing. I got nothing. Nothing against anybody for what they like to do in the bedroom. Honestly, some of it is funny to me. Some of it is unnerving. But hey, whatever gets you off, really. I mean, human sexuality is a bag of cats. It's so some people can't get off unless they fucking boil Barbie heads and then ingest them and then force themselves to vomit while they're jerking off. Like, that's the only way they get off. Like, so it's different for everybody. Whatever, whatever floats your boat, whatever lubes your pubes. So for this guy, it was meth rocks up the butt. You speaking from experience, man of the house? Maybe I am. Maybe I fucking am. Why? Do you have Barbies for sale? Hit me up after the show. So let's talk about sex and drugs. That did sound oddly specific. Okay, to be honest, where I found that, I had a friend who had a
friend,
coffee table,
sure,
like a coffee table book.
Friend, yeah.
It's okay. It's legit for his friend. No. I had a friend who had a coffee table book of like psychologically listed sexual fetishes, and so it was just an interesting read, and that one stuck out to me. Like I'll never forget reading about how that was.
Oh, so this is a real thing.
That's a legitimate fetish that exists. That
at
some
least
people
one
have.
Person has.
Yeah, probably one. I don't know. At least one person, but I mean, that's just how do you come to that? Like, there's always something in your past that is connected to your sexual preferences or fetishes. Usually, like, I was spanked a lot as a kid. Some girl says, and so like now I love being spanked. How do you come to I can't come unless I ingest boiled Barbie heads? What did your parents do to you? That's what you ended up with as a sexual. Wow.
The funniest thing would be if they just had a totally normal childhood and it's just like, yeah, I just kind of find this hot. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
it just sounded fun, so I tried it and it was great.
And now
so
I can't.
Now
I have to have it all
way.
the time. Oh my gosh. So,
no, but this dude, this Chris Burrows, the funniest thing is how clean cut he looks.
Yes!
Like, he just looks like he could be my dad, and like, just imagine like how degenerate can this person get?
I'm telling you, it's the clean cut ones that you got to watch out for.
Yeah.
Which is why I always kind of am leery around you, Adam, because I got to say, you're pretty clean cut looking.
Yep. I mean, whatever I'm into, that's between me and my wife, and sometimes face.
So, for those of you who have experienced sex and drugs together, if you have any fun stories you'd like to share, please let us know in the show chat that if you'd like to be unmuted and share with us your fucked up stories. We're happy to listen to them. And for you co-hosts, Joe, I know you've got to have some sort of fucked up story. Okay. Apparently he doesn't.
Sorry, I've forgotten I had muted myself. No, I don't really have any. Okay. Nah, I don't really have any, sorry.
You don't have any sex and drugs stories?
No, I was just an alcoholic, dude.
Alcohol is a drug.
Yeah, but I didn't have sex. I just passed out and blacked out all the time.
All right, I found the butt sneeze.
I did not have fun.
You found the butt sneeze. Okay, so post it in show chat.
I'm literally like doing 80 trying to do this. Hold on.
Oh my God!
Please do not
please
do that.
Don't die.
Do not do that. Pull over
really
or don't. Like,
I would rather fuck you when you're warm and have a breathing heart. Don't make me come after your corpse.
Woo, woo.
I really don't want to have to do that.
Sorry, we're only going a little bit sideways. It's also raining if you want to be even more scared.
Yeah. Seriously.
I wish it was still raining.
Focus on the road. It's one thing to talk to us.
We're good. I got it. Hold on.
So, fuck you, Augie. Corpses are for me. I know, but I'm sorry, it's Pony Girl. If she dies, and I don't get to fuck her when she's alive, I'm going to the funeral, and there's one thing on my mind.
I got friends you can talk to. All right, they'll help you.
Bet, motherfucker, says Saint Face. So, like, I used to, I used to do drugs and have sex a lot. And the drug of choice for me, as some of you already know, were uppers. Specifically, I did my fair share of meth, which is why I'm as fucked up as I am. Actually, I think I was fucked up before, but it doesn't matter. Been sober for years, clean for years. I'm good. So, but I still think that there were certain side effects. Like I have a little stumble, you know, in my speech pattern. Sometimes I get stuck on words, and that's definitely a side effect. So I don't recommend doing it, but I will say this. Being able to fuck for like 6 to 8 hours straight, nonstop, was something else. Some people, it's funny to me to hear certain people say, I don't like to have sex for more than half an hour. That always shocks me, especially when it comes from women. Like, that's like, what?
Yeah, because women don't have an excuse.
If you can't get it done in a half an hour, like, are you serious? Because even though I don't do drugs anymore, like, a half an hour seems short to me. Like, that's foreplay. Like, that's not even...
Are we talking about the whole sex experience or just the penetration itself? Because if you're in me for more than half an hour and you can't get either of us done, there's an issue.
What?
That is true.
Who's talking about getting either of us done? Like, of course, you can't go more than once?
Not easily. I am not a distance runner. I am a sprinter. This is not a marathon. It's the Olympics.
We'll fix that. So, Sativa, are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, she's...
Yes.
Oh,
I had to find my unmute button.
So, what about you? You got any fun stories?
Honestly, and somewhat disappointingly, no, not really, because I'm generally sober. Like, I've had some sloppy drunk sex, but that's about it. Like, I don't know. There are a lot of activities that I feel like people really are all about being fucked up for, that I'm like, why would you not want to experience this sober?
Right.
Like,
I agree with you on that.
Like, prime example, one of the girls we swung at the suspension party. I mean, this bitch, she was on some shit, and like, she was about it. She was obviously capable of providing consent, so we still hung her. But I'm here to tell you, like, why would you want to be that altered to have an experience like this? So for me, I personally, like, I won't begrudge somebody else drugs in the bedroom, but I feel like if I knew that a partner of mine was like, fuck yeah, drugs while I'm fucking you, I might actually take that a little offensively. Like, if you don't want to fuck me sober, why are we doing this?
Well, now let me ask you a question. What if it was just like a novelty time? Like, hey, let's try it. I mean, that's different from I need to get fucked up every time I fuck you, right?
Yeah. Like, I feel like, you know, if it's not so early on that we've only, you know, been in bed a handful of times, I could see that. You know, and again, I certainly wouldn't begrudge someone that, but admittedly, because I am naturally a super fucking insecure human being, I would be like, oh my God, you're bored of me, or oh my God, I've stopped doing a good job at this. Like, I have personal hangups that would probably end up causing issues if I was aware of that. But, you know, I mean, I'm certainly not here to begrudge someone the joy of doing a rail of coke off my ass and then getting down. But that's cocaine. That's a whole different category. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, in terms of, because like when I hear this topic, you know, drugs and sex, I immediately think like party drugs. And so I don't know, to me, it just...
Can you specify what you mean by party drugs?
You know, like you're... God, my voice changed there. Yes. That was a good example, though. Yeah, I mean, shit that, you know, 30-year-old people in way too much plastic jewelry take to try to make themselves feel. Yeah, that's what I think of.
Is anal meth a party drug?
Anything's
So
a
I'm in
party
love with
drug
you.
if you
And
try
this is
hard
going to
enough.
sound super self-righteous, and I'm okay with that. I would never knowingly go to bed with somebody who was on meth for any reason with any excuse. Literally never.
Yeah, there's people who feel that way. That's fair.
Yeah, and that's my personal opinion. And again, that's not I will, fuck everybody. It just, for me personally, that's a hard line for me, which is saying something because we know I have so many of those. But yeah, that would definitely be an immediate hard line. Fuck no, go find somebody else to do this with, kind of thing.
What about coke?
Huh?
What about cocaine?
See, and that to me is different because that's some disco shit. Understand, we are listening to music from.
Well, you know what? I totally understand that. I think a lot
And
of
there's
people
going to be
feel that
so
way.
much glitter. Oh man, the glitter. Oh fuck, you're going to be snorting some
Right?
glitter with that cocaine because it's going to be all over my ass before the coke's there. Like, I be about that life. But yeah, meth would definitely be a hard line for me. And like I said, I just know, as much as I could sit here and be like, I wouldn't mind. I know for a fact that no matter what point in a quote unquote relationship or interactionary period that happened, I would find a way to turn that into some serious, serious self-doubt for myself. And I'm aware of that. So it's not necessarily something I'd be into. Not necessarily, like I said, I fucking wouldn't begrudge anybody else that. If that's your shit, you do you. But I know that me personally, I could not make that any kind of a habit. And I know that.
Yeah, you know what? That was, for me, that was the difference between meth and coke, was that meth, like, it led down dark roads eventually.
Yeah.
Like, it was bad. There was no getting around that. Like, it was going to turn bad. So the best thing for you to do is just to never pick it up. But with coke, there was this, it was light and easy and free. Like, you could pick it up, enjoy it, and then like 40 minutes later you could put it down and just be like, all right, that was fun. Like, it was just it was so different, so much better.
Yeah.
It was just,
Well,
it just a little more expensive.
Yeah. See, and I personally know
people.
See, and I personally know people who recreationally use cocaine, and you would never fucking know until they told you, because that's for the weekends or days off or whatever. You know, these are people that have families and jobs and very full, productive lives.
Dude, coke is everybody's drug, okay? That's
but I don't
every
know
man's drug. Like, it's the drug of the people.
But I don't know anybody who can or has ever done that with methamphetamines, ever.
No, it's a bad idea. It's the best thing to do is just to stay away from meth, and it just stick with coke.
Yeah.
Be an adult and stay with cocaine.
And no crack either, because you know what Whitney Houston says.
What's that?
I said, well, and no crack either, because you know what Whitney Houston says.
Oh.
Well, nothing now. She's dead. But at one point, she said, crack is whack. Crack is cheap.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just do coke.
I had a friend who said, you want to smoke crack? And I was like, all right. And it wasn't, I didn't think it was a big deal. Like, you hear about people smoking crack, and then they're like, and then I was sucking dick in alleyways, living in fucking trash cans. Like, and none of that happened to me. So, like, I didn't really think much of it. I was like, maybe it was bunk stuff. I don't know.
I'm here for the free crack giveaway.
Crack giveaway. Something you don't know about me, I smoke rocks. So, yeah. I don't know. I think sex and drugs can be a good combination. It can be. I had alcohol. It depends. I don't know. Sometimes it's fun and it's okay getting drunk and fucking, but then there's times where it's like, it can cause whiskey dick. It doesn't always, but there's times where it can.
Alcohol turns me into somebody I don't know. Like, I don't know how many years that she worked at a strip club, but I've never worked in one. I can't be drunk without being a slut. It's bad.
I love you, pony girl. I really do. Like, I swear to God.
Like that GIF I posted in the group the other day, and it was like me dancing in front of my mirror wine drunk. I don't think you understand.
Oh my gosh.
I need a retractable pole in my room.
Yeah, I don't. You know, Weston, I don't get drunk either anymore. But I remember one time we were out. I was at my friend's dorm over at UCI, and him and his roommate were there, and their girls and a couple other friends, and some of us, myself included, got really, really bad drunk. At one point, I had spilled we ran out of mixers, and I looked. There was tea, so I just mixed. I think it was. I don't remember if it was whiskey or vodka, but whatever it was, I was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna mix it with the tea." And I couldn't find a glass, and I had a bowl of like a metal mixing bowl, and I had just poured all the alcohol into that with the tea, and I was drinking from the bowl. And I guess from my friend's perspective, I was kind of, haphazard with the bowl, so they were worried I was going to spill, and they were trying to kind of caution me, like, "Hey, watch out, just handle that a little more carefully. You don't want to spill it." And I, from my perspective, thought that they were trying to take the bowl. And so I was getting mad and throwing punches. Not real punches, but I was like, "Get away from me and my bowl." Because I wanted to take my alcohol. It was mine. And then I think I did spill it on myself. And then my friend and his girl went into his bedroom, and I thought it would be funny. I don't know if I actually consulted anybody about this, or if I just thought in my head everybody would think this was funny and just voted for them. I think that's probably what happened. But I dropped my trousers to my ankles, wrapped my dick around my wrist, and went into their bedroom while they were making out and said, "Hey, can you help me read my watch? I can't tell what time it is." And they didn't like that. They didn't think that was funny.
Jesus fucking Christ.
And then we took my friend. My friend had a giant black dildo, and we ended up chopping that into pieces with a kitchen knife. And we started tossing pieces of it at each other, hard. This was a thick, fucking, fat ass, giant black dildo. And even the pieces, after we cut it into pieces, they were hefty. They hurt when you threw them hard enough. So we had some fun throwing pieces of dildo at each other. And then we started using the wall as a dartboard, and we used kitchen knives as the darts. That was fun for a time. Then I choked Shaw out. We were fighting. It wasn't intentional. It was, but it wasn't. He kept coming at me. And he wanted to play fight. So I choked him out, and he didn't like that. And then I guess the roommate took another girl who wasn't his girlfriend, and he says he thought it was his girlfriend, and they went into his bedroom, and he butt fucked her and then passed out and peed all over the bed, and the two of them, and she woke up not knowing where she was or why she smelled like urine, and the girlfriend was really upset. That was all one night. That was good times. I miss those times. Those are good times. But yeah, I do everything sober now. Sin is fun for a season, I think, is a good rule of thumb, as it were. I noticed why is everybody so quiet? Nobody has anything to fucking add?
Yeah,
this is just getting wilder.
I don't really have a lot to add to the what kind of drugs have you done conversation.
Have you done any? I know you drink. Have you ever smoked pot?
No.
Not even pot, huh?
Nope.
What about like prescription drugs? Actually, you know what? At this point,
I'm
this is
on
when I want
prescription
to.
drugs right now, but
What?
I'm on prescription drugs and have been since I was a child.
Are you addicted to them?
No.
Well, guess what, Adam? Some people are, and
Exactly.
that is the greatest segue into our next
Fantastic
topic,
segue.
which I would like to. Is it Weston? Are you still unmuted?
I sure am.
Awesome. So Weston came to us and said that he would like to discuss the opioid crisis that we have here in the U.S. And I thought that would be a great topic to have because so many of us have experience with drugs, and then some of us have experience just prescription-wise, like you were talking about, Adam. So I kind of feel like this is a topic that we can all kind of relate to in one way or another. And it's an issue. It's an issue. It's an interesting one. So Weston, I would like to give you the floor and let you kind of tell us. So what's going on with the opioid crisis? Yes, you can, Allison. You liar. You're a fucking nurse. All you do is drugs all day, just to get through being a nurse and being Portuguese
And hating men.
All right, Weston, I apologize. Please
No,
tell us more about.
Well,
tell us about this opioid crisis, brother.
okay. Well, I'll go down the. I mean, I'm at pretty much this day and age. Everybody knows what's going on. Is the overdoses of opioid-related drugs, which are anything derived from the poppy plant, opium, morphine, fentanyl, Vicodin, all of those drugs. They're especially dangerous as far as overdoses, and as we've seen, there's been a skyrocketing in deaths. But one thing we don't talk about with the opioid crisis is that there's a lot of misconceptions, and also there's other impacts of how we approach that problem. Basically,
how do you mean?
Well, opioids are used primarily in healthcare legally. That's where they're used the most in the legal fashion because they are the only medications that are effective relief on a broad and general scale. Most other drugs are targeted or they don't work or they're very, like I said, targeted or used for very specific things.
Right. So opioids are specific to pain medicine, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
We all have the opioid system in our body where there's receptors that all of these medicines interact with, and it's a very broad effect, but it's basically just switching how you perceive pain. It's not doing anything to actually stop the pain, but it's tricking your mind into, it's not as bad, basically.
I thought it just shut down the pain receptors. You're saying it doesn't do that?
It doesn't so much shut down the receptors as it does just it binds to them and it basically triggers your brain to release a lot of dopamine and it alters the perception of pain. It makes it so other things can't affect the pain receptors nearly as well because basically when the opioids are bound to the opioid receptors, it's very hard to break that. That's where Narcan comes in. Narcan is a opioid antagonist, which breaks off the opioids from the receptors.
Oh, so it's like an anti-opioid?
Yes.
Like an anti-drug?
Yes.
What is that? What is that used for? Narcan.
Narcan is for acute overdoses of basically high dose opioids.
That's right. I've heard of this. This is the stuff they use when they find somebody who's OD'd, right?
Yeah.
When they find somebody who's unconscious and they suspect drugs, they give them Narcan no matter. Because it literally can be the difference between life and death.
That's crazy.
And it's
okay.
It's actually really interesting with Narcan. Its method of action is actually very short compared to opioids. So a single dose is actually never necessarily enough. That we see in medical shows that you can just give one dose of Narcan and it's like done, but that's not the case, especially in the case of fentanyl. When you overdose on fentanyl, which is a very, very dangerous synthetic drug that is in the black market right now.
I didn't know that was synthetic. I do know that it's like it's the number one like drug issue right now is fentanyl, and it's really dangerous.
Yep.
Does that fall under the list of opioids? Is that an opioid?
Yes, it's a synthetic
I didn't know
opioid.
that.
It's completely man-made. It's basically meant to. It basically has the same chemical structure as the natural or semi-synthetic opioids, but it's completely man-made. But it also has a potency that's like 100 times that of morphine, so it's incredibly strong.
So what's the what's the cause behind our opioid crisis in the U.S. today? Is it prescription drugs mostly, or is it recreational things like heroin and whatnot?
Well, there has been a lot of phases to the opioid crisis. There's actually 3 phases that they call them waves, where it has kind of gone from prescription to recreational. So in 1996, I'm sure everybody has heard of OxyContin and Purdue Pharma. Before the 90s, pain was not treated very well. It was reserved for cancer patients. And in that time, there was a very big push to treat pain in a better manner. And that is when, in 1996, Purdue Pharma released OxyContin. And that's when we started to see a rise in just drug abuse, particularly from prescribed opiates.
Right, because they're very addictive, right? So people get prescribed these narcotics, these pain medicines, pills mostly, right? Like it's almost always pills.
Unless
they get really easily addicted.
Well, they have an addiction risk. It's not that's one of the misconceptions is the rate of addiction actually follows more with dosages, not so much exposure. They are addictive in terms of medicines, but if you take them appropriately, they're typically not going to be that addictive. The rates, Purdue Pharma, one of the biggest litigatory problems with Purdue is they basically claim that Purdue did not market OxyContin correctly, and they misguided people into believing they weren't addictive. What Purdue had said was that OxyContin was less than 1% addictive. And as it's come out, I mean, they did not do widespread longitudinal studies, but almost no pharmaceutical companies do.
How did they? Because I mean, that's surprising to me to hear that they came out and said that OxyContin was less than 1% addictive. Was that back in the 90s when they said that?
Yes, that was back when they released OxyContin.
I never knew that they said that. Like that, there's more than 10 years worth of data to contradict that now.
Actually, there's a lot of data that both contradicts it and supports it. Unfortunately, addiction is actually very hard to quantify. What most statisticians and people who study this issue, they actually call it OUD, opioid use disorder, and it's a very wide spectrum of symptoms that it can be as simple as misusing your drug, or taking higher doses than you should, or taking it more frequently. But it's not just addiction. That's the problem. So a lot of studies have concluded as little as 0.226% addiction risk up to 8% addiction risk. It really depends on, if you're abusing the drug, what you're using the drug for. Typically, people who are using it for adequate pain relief have less susceptibility to addiction because they're not really getting as much of the euphoria as they are the pain relief. So it's widely variable.
I guess, given the data and the numbers that you're running, it doesn't sound like that should be that should cause the opioid crisis that we have on our hands now. It sounds like really low numbers, really reasonable, right? Am I missing something?
Well, that would be where the second wave comes in.
Okay.
So, of course, with any drug that can be abused for recreational purposes, there's still going to be some uptick in recreational use. And unfortunately, with opioid medications, particularly OxyContin, there was a sharper rise of abuse than most other drugs because they were at the time quite accessible. They were being overprescribed. That's something I will often admit. In the 90s, they were definitely overprescribed, and especially in the early 2000s. But one of the problems is the second wave came, and that's when we started to crack down on opioids. It was not very strong of a crackdown, but we had started to make adjustments because we had noticed there was quite a bit of danger to them because they would their method for overdose is the one that will particularly kill you is respiratory depression. That's where you just find it very hard to breathe. I'm sure if anybody has ever had a dose of morphine, they found that their breath gets labored. That's why they'll typically monitor you, and that's why they can't give you more doses than in a certain period of time.
Oh, it affects your breathing?
Mm-hmm. The opioid receptors in everywhere. Basically, another effect that they have is to basically cause muscle paralysis, very calming effect, and a particularly vulnerable muscle to the effects is the diaphragm, so it's harder to breathe. And so especially in larger doses, respiratory depression is the main concern.
I only experienced morphine once when I was in the hospital for testicular torsion, and
nice.
Right. I don't remember having labored breathing, but maybe that's just that's not what I was focused on.
Yeah, obviously.
I was focused on please make my balls stop hurting.
Yeah. But in the hospital, they're obviously going to give you a monitored dose, and it's very variable.
I remember it itching, like
that is a side effect.
Yeah, but it goes away. Like there's this initial just kind of an itchy feeling, and then it kind of fades away, and then there's just no pain. That's all I remember. It's just so funny to me. It's not something I personally, from the experience, it's not something I can imagine being addicted to. But then that's personal. That's different for everybody.
Yeah.
What So I totally get that there's others who that's how they respond chemically, biologically. So this, I apologize for interrupting. You were saying?
Well, I was just going to say, since opioids had started to have an effect on just incorrect use and abuse and had afflicted overdoses, not nearly to the degree we see now. One of the first things, the second wave of the opioid crisis, was when we started to see an uptick in heroin use. And this came in 2010 when OxyContin was reformulated. One of the most popular ways to abuse OxyContin was to crush it up and either dilute it in saline and inject it into yourself or snort it. So OxyContin was reformulated so that it was harder to crush up. And that is when heroin started to come back to the market because it was more potent and it could be injected and all of those things because the pharmacokinetics of bioavailability are there. You inject something or you snort it, there's going to be a lot more potency than ingesting it as a pill.
Right.
Okay, and then from there, in 2013, once we started to notice the rise in heroin, that's when we started to crack down on prescription opioids, which we can't deny there was some overprescription. But in 2013, we our national prescription stats. We had peaked at that point. And from then on, we saw that not only was heroin becoming a problem, but synthetic fentanyl being manufactured illicitly in China had begun flooding into the market. And fentanyl is the main killer. It's something like 69% the cause of overdoses.
Right. I hear that it requires a great degree of specificity when you're dosing it out. That if you use even a little bit over, like you can't just, it's not like cooking where you can just, a dash of fentanyl. Like you have to be very specific with how much fentanyl you're using. And if you go over,
it's incredibly easy to overdose.
Yeah.
And not only that, but
from what I understand, it's incredibly easy to die.
Yes. One of the things that they're seeing a lot of is that fentanyl is coming into any drug, because fentanyl has this synergetic effect with a lot of drugs. So what drug dealers will often do is fentanyl, since it's synthetic and since it's rather cheap, they basically use a little bit of fentanyl in a lot of their drugs to lengthen their supply.
McIntyre, there's a couple of posts here that I want to read that are before we continue. I hope I'm not interrupting. And if I am, I apologize. But Betty, Robin, I gave you a shout out earlier, but you weren't here, girl. I told everybody that all the changes to the show are because of you, because you kind of pushed me that way. But Betty says she had a boss who was roughly 11 years sober in his AA community. Once he was referred to pain management in late November of 2001, and he was asking for stronger dosages of morphine sulfide, and they took an accommodating attitude, and he went from 40 milligrams to 60 milligrams. In the following month, he was shopping for extracurricular sellers of similar products, which is very sad. She adds to that a fun fact: a retired old-timer associated with the Fullerton, California 12-step community would compile prescription painkillers and turn around and sell them to people privately under the table or whatever. Wow, 12-step communities are this is not a good selling, not a good look. Bad optics. McIntyre has a question. He's got something to say here. He says fentanyl seems to be what the propaganda is focused on because of the lethality of the drug when mixed with recreational drugs. We should all agree that illicit import of fentanyl should be restricted. Do you worry, Weston, that legit medical usage of drugs are going to be affected?
Yes, and that is kind of where we have seen ourselves. So in 2016, the CDC made a landmark publishing called the CDC Opioid Prescribing Guidelines. And they were guidelines, they were not law. But one of the implementations of them, anytime the government seems to put in any kind of anything regarding drugs, the DEA tends to respond, and medical systems tend to respond as well and heed those guidelines very forcefully because they fear that the crackdown will affect them financially. So in those guidelines, one of the most important things that the CDC had said was opioids should no longer be the first line treatment for chronic pain. And unfortunately, there was not a lot of evidence to suggest a lot of the claims in the CDC guidelines. In fact, in 2014, the FDA had actually rejected one of the lead organizations who pushed for the CDC guidelines. It's called the Physicians for Responsible Opioid Prescribing, PROP. It's spearheaded by Andrew Kolodny, and he is a psychiatrist who has very vehemently come out against opioids. And they established what is called the morphine milligram equivalents, and all opioids are measured in relation to morphine. And they basically established the 90 milligram morphine equivalent dosing. And as such, a lot of pain patients have found themselves to be either heavily restricted on medicines that they had been stable on for decades, or they're being forced to taper off of their medicines entirely. And they are often having to go to illicit sources to find the relief that they had once had because of the crackdown on pharmaceutical opioids. to address the topic that fentanyl seems to be where the propaganda lies, I actually disagree. A lot of things when we talk about the opioid crisis is very centered on the impact that pharmaceuticals had on the opioid crisis. And not to deny that that didn't happen, but this heavy focus on prescription drugs causing where we are now is a misconception. It is primarily recreational abuse of drugs.
Huh. Okay, so you're saying that oh wow, there's echo. I'm sorry. So you're saying that basically everything that is out there in the media, which pretty much blames our opioid crisis on those people getting addicted from prescription drugs, that's a false narrative, that it's mostly recreational?
Mm-hmm. The idea that
so where is this false narrative coming from? Is it just a mistake, or is it intentional?
It's not a mistake. It is definitely rooted in some evidence. Again, back when we talk about the OxyContin issue in the early 2000s and early 2010s, it was an issue. It's not anymore because of the peaking of opioid restrictions. Doctors had started to become cognizant of prescription practices. So it's not a worry that we have to ignore, but it's definitely not the case anymore because this idea that people.
I'm sorry. So we did have, but we fixed it, but the narrative hasn't caught up with that yet. Is that what we're dealing with?
I guess I wouldn't say we fixed it, but we had made massive strides to fixing it. As we see that prescriptions have now dropped, we don't give nearly as many opioids. The common story is that you had a root canal and you got a bunch of Vicodin and you got addicted on those Vicodin that you got. And a lot of times that could be true because people were given a lot more opioids than were essential for given doses, where a root canal was given 14 days of Vicodin, it probably only needed 3 to 5. So it's not that it's not true. It's that there is definitely a larger force at hand, which is the recreational black market, that the mainstream media is not acknowledging as much as it should to really highlight where this opioid crisis is coming from.
Now, why are people using the black market for these opioids just to get high, or is it pain relief?
Most people in the black market, of course, are just doing it to get high. The status quo junkie that's getting high on heroin and things like that. But there has been an uptick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say there has been an uptick of chronic pain patients who are being denied opioid therapy by doctors, prescribers,
so they're
who have started to, go and get heroin off the market, which fuels the problem with fentanyl, because heroin is often laced with fentanyl, and you can't, have too much fentanyl or you're going to overdose.
Right. Too much of a good thing, I guess.
Yes.
So what's the solution here?
It's really hard to tell. For one, a lot of we need to definitely focus on the black market and the effect that illicit drug use has on the problem. And I'm not saying that pharmaceutical. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask, do you feel that we need stronger enforcement in regards to illegal opioids being smuggled in?
Absolutely. Coming in from China and Mexico, it's definitely a problem. That is where a lot of the illicit fentanyl is coming from.
I'm curious, what do you feel that stronger border enforcement and a wall, then, do you think that would help?
I believe it would help to some extent. I cannot advocate for any specific level of help.
nobody's saying it'll solve it completely, I don't think, and that's
I think
that's
it
kind
might
of the issue,
interfere.
right? It would definitely, at least to some percent, in my make it more difficult for those who are smuggling.
Yes, I do believe
that
that would
can't
help
be
a little bit.
and that right, that can't be a bad thing,
No,
if we make it
when
if we make
when
it harder
Trump,
for them.
yeah, when Trump talks about building the wall, particularly to stop the inflow of drugs, he's not wrong at all. A lot of the problem does come from Mexico. It's not coming from Canada. It's not coming from our northern brothers. It's coming from our south border.
Right.
But one of the other effects is, as far as the medicinal side, the pharmaceutical side, one of the biggest things that we definitely need to stress is education about opioids. You really should not abuse your drugs, especially if you're opioid naive. But at the same time, we don't need these overly restrictive policies. Doctors do have the ability to recognize when they are prescribing too much. But we shouldn't be so restrictive that paying patients and people who legitimately need these medicines aren't able to get them.
Well, I guess that's where we're at with that. I hope that we're able to do something about the illicit, illegal smuggling of these drugs. I think that will make a massive difference. So,
well, as Trump came out, one of the he has talked about the illicit trade of drugs coming from our southern border. But another thing he has come out and said is he wants national prescriptions to be cut by 1/3 in the next 5 years or 3 years or something like that. And unfortunately, goals like that are very artificial, they're very superficial, and they don't have evidence supporting their effect because no longer are pharmaceutical drugs highly influencing this problem.
Yeah. That's good to know, because up until this point, that was my assumption, that our opioid crisis was primarily a result of prescription drugs and people abusing them or getting addicted to them.
Yeah.
So that's good to know. Well, I thank you for bringing that up, man. Thank you for informing us on that. You certainly opened my eyes to it. I know more about it than I did.
Yeah. The takeaway is really that, it's not that we should liberalize the prescribing of opioids again, but we need to focus on the black market because they are influencing the most problem. And then for other people who wish to be helpful, basically kind of do some more research into the medical side and just the impact that restrictive policies have had. There's actually a national organization called Don't Punish Pain, and they're one of the leading forces in talking about and exposing the problem with force tapering and just the inability for patients to get the medicines they need.
Yeah. I think it's important, definitely. Well, here's to everybody who's suffering from that. I hope that.
Personally, I hold the radical belief that even addicts should just be. Ultimately, I believe that having prescription pharmaceuticals like Vicodin and Percocet, I believe, is better in the long run in the black market than having fentanyl and heroin. So addicts really, I do believe, should just be treated with opioids. If not the anti-withdrawal opioids, which are like methadone and norepinephrine, buprenorphine or something like that. I do believe giving them those drugs and then punishing them for abusing further, I think would ultimately have a better impact than, the idea of abstinence from drugs. I don't think that's very realistic for addicts.
Right. No, you're going to always have relapses, and it's not you're absolutely right. It's not very realistic at all.
Yeah, one of the problems actually with addiction treatment is those relapses often cause them to be completely destroyed as far as further treatment. If addicts are found to have like a benzodiazepine, like Xanax, in their system, they will be completely cut off from their methadone, which their methadone is what's curtailing withdrawals. And if they withdrawals, that's going to boost the desire to use because withdrawals are incredibly painful.
Man. Well, again, thank you so much for bringing this up. I appreciate your
You are very welcome.
insight. I would like to I'd like to take a moment, if I could, to bring up Sativa. Are you there?
I am, yes.
I kind of want to go over. I know you kind of brought it up as a joke, or perhaps you meant it as a joke, but I took it seriously. You have been engaged in a recreational activity, suspension, human suspension. Is there a term for it that I'm not familiar with?
No, it's just called suspension, or more specifically, a lot of times we call it human suspension, but that's
So
it. It's suspension.
I'd like to talk to you more about that. I'd like to ask you about that, and if you could tell us, if you don't mind talking about it, if you could tell us about
God knows.
how you got involved in that and what your experience with that has been. I think it's interesting. I mean, you're hanging people from meat hooks, basically.
Yes. So I have very long had a very serious interest in a number of what is considered in the realm of heavy modifications and things like that. And while suspension is certainly not what could be considered like a permanent modification, because of course, basically just a quick overview for anybody who's unfamiliar with body suspension or human suspension. What it is we are taking and piercing into the flesh of a person, basically really fish hooks or things that look like carabiners. Okay, there's a number of implements used, but keeping it simple, they are
really
hooks.
Some of them look like carabiners.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, we actually have these. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-piece hooks. That essentially it's a little pin, and I'm actually looking right now so I can get a picture to show you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And we literally we do the piercing with, a needle. And then we subsequently, we put the pin or the hook in that will actually be bearing their weight with. And then with any number of, there's artists that use chains, there's artists that use a wide variety of things with which to hang the people. But what we do is we literally just go ahead, and we actually hang them from their flesh with these hooks up through what is called a rig. And this can be everywhere from your super basic, pulley system over a rod, clear up through to these very, very elaborate and rather ornate, in fact, types of rigs, many of which are actually custom designed for what it is that we are doing. It's really a cool thing. So the reason I said it can't really be considered, quote unquote, a modification, because of course, post-healing, all you have left are the scars. We're using 6 gauge. What was that?
I'm sorry, I jumped in and interrupted you. Go ahead.
You got all excited. It's okay.
No, I wanted to say this is a practice that kind of goes back to like old Native American tribes used to do this as a spiritual thing, didn't they?
Yes. Oh, yeah. And, upwards of 5,000 years ago, they were doing it in India. This is not a new concept. This is, it was basically brought into my industry by a group that we affectionately refer to as the modern primitives, who are what have put into the spotlight in the more mainstream piercing industry or modification industry things like, the big stretched lobes, lip plates, cheek stretching, things like that.
Which are very old tribal practices.
Right. Well, and what cracks me up is people know that tattooing is a very old art. But what people are finally just now starting to realize is that the piercing side of it, because as a rule, it's typically piercers that handle heavy modifications like, tongue splits, ear shape, things like that. That's typically a piercer's game.
Yeah.
And so that being said, people are finally starting to realize, like, no, it's not just tattooing. Like, our stuff has been here forever and a day as well. And of course, I think
people under the impression that piercing is new.
New by comparison to tattooing, yes.
Really?
In general, no, but by comparison to tattooing, the bulk of people really do believe that, tattooing's been around forever, and piercing is something that started in the 80s when, gay guys had to find a way to announce themselves to one another at clubs.
Wait, I never heard that. Is that really? Do people think that piercing came from homosexuals trying to identify one another?
That's one thing that has been suggested because of the old, which lobe do you have pierced code.
Okay, right. The earring in the right ear or the left ear. I could never get a straight answer as to which ear was supposed to mean you were gay. Like people always
people.
It always changed. I was like, shit, I don't know which ear you're supposed to pierce. Fuck.
Right. But yeah, so with human suspension, like I said, while I tend to loosely refer to it as a heavy modification, again, you're not leaving anything behind except scars, so it's not technically a modification. I just threw out in chat the three most common types of hooks you're going to see being used. And then I ended up in the wrong freaking chat. There we are. So that the very first one I posted, that's the 5-piece. That's called a Gilson hook. Those are really good for
a little twisty.
Yes. So those are really good hooks for when you are looking at a client who is going to go up and do a lot of moving around, because the experience is extremely personal. Everybody's different, and there's people who it takes us more time to clean them, mark them, stab them, and lift them than they'll spend up. And then there are people who will hang for literal hours. There are people who, once they get up there, they just kind of want to chill and hang and look at everybody. There are people who, when they get up there, they want to be doing some parkour shit off the fucking walls. So yeah, those Gilson hooks for me are my go-to when I've got somebody that I'm getting ready to pick up that I know is going to be booting around a lot, doing a lot of movement. Because as you can see, that huge fish hook style, you start moving around too much, you move wrong, lose tension in one spot, and bam, that fucker just slid out and possibly filleted your skin on the way. So yeah, there's a lot of different configurations. This weekend, I actually got to do my first Superman hang, which is a total of 8 hooks, 2 in the shoulder, 2 in the lower back, 2 in the upper thigh, and 2 more in the calf. So that was really exciting for me because I've never gotten to do so many hooks on one client. Tying him.
This is something new for you, is it not? You doing the hooking of things?
Yeah, so I've been so much in love with this activity for so long. But I recently, in fact, back just in October, got a chance to go down. One of my industry friends, as it were, his name is Rod, and he owns a shop down in North Glen, Colorado, about an hour and a half south of where I live. And he gave me the opportunity. He's like, hey, do you want to come in and assist? And this whole time that we're talking about it, I'm over here thinking, oh, assist. So I'm sitting here like, oh, okay, I'm going to glove up and probably, help with paperwork or help mark or hold skin so that he can pierce it. And by the third client in, he's like, girl, no, here, and starts handing me needles. So of course, I'm not going to be like, no. I'm like, fuck yes, I would like to throw hooks today. Let's do the thing. And so I was extremely fortunate, and all of his clients that he had in at that point were very, very willing to give me a chance to kind of practice on them. Really, there's not even a terribly polite way to say it. I was practicing on these people. And it was really an incredible experience for me because I will level with you. I mean, I've spent the bulk of my adult life researching this, but I had never even gotten a chance to see it in person.
And the next thing you knew, you were seeing it and you were helping to hook people.
Yeah, and all at once, I'm hands-on actually getting to do this. And I'm actually about to drop another couple pictures in the chat here. The first person that I ever got to rig up, and I'm talking throw the hooks, tie him, the whole nine. His name is Jason. He's the one that we just did the Superman on. Jason is a bad motherfucker. I'm here to tell you, because typically he suspends 2 to 3 times per night. He typically does not just go up once. We do different configurations on him. One of our members who is in the chat right now, in fact, Carcer, he was actually with me for this last event, and he got to pull the chain and lift people up and drop them down. But
Oh,
yeah, so
wow.
I got the really unique opportunity last October to kind of step in, and by pure dumb luck, because the other piercer who was supposed to show up to assist Rod and actually do basically what I was doing didn't show up. So it was kind of this last minute, like, hey, do you feel comfortable trying this? And I'm like, well, as long as, and my big thing, as it always has been, is as long as your clients understand that this is not something that I have done before. Because that's always been a huge sticking point for me is, I need people to not think that I am more experienced at something than I am. I need them to understand this is my first jump out the gate. And all of
So if
them.
you're not comfortable with that, back out now.
Yeah, exactly. And very fortunate.
I was going to ask you about that, so that's curious.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so all of the clients were very much like, hey, if Rod trusts you, we trust you, throw
That's
down.
awesome.
So yeah, it was a really great experience. And it's neat because Jason, the one hanging, he and his wife, Tiana, are actually going to be getting married in May. And we are going, and I was so flattered. They actually asked me to come down and help them with their event because what they're doing is they are going to both be hung and they are going to get married while they're in the air.
Man, that is some.
Is that not too cool?
Well, I mean, it's just, you have to really love doing that. There must be some sort of high from doing it. Like you have to really like being suspended for you to want to, like, hey, let's do this while we get married. That's some heavy duty commitment. That's borderline like, whoa, dude, you're a little intense. Like,
right. But yeah, no, it's this really incredible thing. And the fact that they actually asked me to come down and be a part of it, oh my God, I literally almost cried. I was like, are you guys fucking serious right now?
that's
because,
very cool.
Because yeah, I mean, where you're looking at, okay, yeah, this is really intense. I'm looking at, oh my God, this is this intense. And they want me to come and help them with this
of course.
incredibly special and important thing. And I just, man, oh man. Like it was just, that was one of the coolest.
I remember.
Definitely one of the, I mean, bar none, most incredible compliments I've ever received in my life in terms of, complimenting my skill and my bedside manner and the whole kit and caboodle where, where they're asking me this. I also just threw a picture in the chat of Jason's fiance, Tiana. We started discussing potential configurations for them. And it's, so it's really exciting. And I get asked a lot, especially here in Wyoming, I get asked by a lot of the people, who are watching my Facebook and watching me post these pictures. A lot of people ask, why? And so, Dagger, I don't have a priest right now, but I do have a nun over here from the first set in October. There's not really a weight limit for hooking. It's just a matter of how good your rig is, and it may change how many hooks you need. Because ultimately, I always tell people, here's the thing. You can have your hard time on the table, or you can have your hard time in the air. If you are getting more hooks in you for a more complicated hang, obviously that's going to be a harder time on the table. But once you get up, like Jason there, he weighs about 170 pounds. So if you round that up to 200, 8 hooks in him, yeah, he's going to feel every one of those 8 going in. But once he's hanging, that's less than 25 pounds per hook that, each hook has to bear. So it really, it's a matter of, of appropriate placement and everything, not only for basic human anatomy and physiology, but certainly also for your specific client.
There are a couple of questions here that I want to make sure that we touch on.
Yeah.
Hang on. Where's the one from Weston had a question, and I'm trying to find it now because we've gone past it. He wants to know, how do you do it? Do you stab the hook through, or do you make a wound first and then stab the hook through that?
Nope. So the basics of it are, obviously you've got to go through and clean. We do basically a pre-surgical prep. And what we do is after we do that, we get everything marked and measured. We check for viability within the tissue, the skin, the muscular structures we're working with. And then basically you have one person hold up the skin basically as a set of people clamps. And then we actually use a large gauge needle. The hooks that we use at these events are either 4 or 6 gauge, depending on which style we're using. So we'll use either a 4 or 6 gauge needle and then just basically follow it through with the hook. So while the fish hook style looks like it's got a little bit of a point, that's certainly nothing that you would want to try to force through somebody's skin. You'd never get it through the kind of tissue we're working in, because of course your skin alone cannot bear this kind of weight. It just cannot. You've got to get down into some meat. And it's with a tri-beveled needle. I don't care how damn sharp that needle is, man. I come home from these events with my hands screaming at me. They're achy. So
you're not puncturing muscle or anything like that, right? It's just skin.
No, for certain positions, yeah, we've got to get down into the muscle.
Jesus Christ, that's got to be painful.
I mean, it doesn't feel good, but that's the thing too, along with all these people asking me like, well, why would you do this? There are reasons. And because I ask every one of the people that I have hooked up, hey, why are you doing this? Just out of curiosity, or if they're starting to get into the air and are starting to have trouble, because realistically, from what I understand, the point at which you're barely tiptoeing the ground and almost in the air is about the shittiest part of the whole experience, because that's when the pain really sets in. Well, and so that's when I ask them, hey, tell me why you're doing this, because if you can tell me out loud why you're doing this, you can make it through this. And because a lot of it too, there's a lot of care that goes into it with our clients, in terms of making sure that we're really giving them the best information we can and giving them the support that we can and the encouragement. And I hear answers all the way across the board from, well, fuck it, I just want to see if I can do it, if I can stand doing this, all the way up through to these incredibly, reported spiritually enlightening experiences that people are having. And I mean, it sounds like a joke, but I'm like, it's being high on life, because it's causing such a rush of so many of your chemicals at once that your body's just, you're floating, like dead ass serious. Aside from the obvious pun, you are floating up there. And
is this something you've done? Have you been hooked?
I have not yet. I would like to, but we are going to have to find another assistant, because it's a 2-person process. And yeah, it's definitely something I'd like to try. But obviously, being in the industry, I'm very big on, I want to see the mechanics of this first. I want to see how this works.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a goal I've had for a very long time. It's just a matter of it's going to have to be the right time and place, because it is a lot of body stress. I do have a heart condition. I have SVT arrhythmia. So I'm going to have to not only be able to not have to drive all the way back to fucking Wyoming after I'm done with that, but it's going to most likely for basically to err on the side of caution. I'm going to have to be able to make sure that I've got a couple of days off after the fact, just to let my body recover. I'm going to have somebody with me who is very familiar with my health conditions and what to do if any of them should rear their ugly head while we're at it. So yeah, it's definitely something that I'm going to do. It's just a matter of when,
Okay. Daggerfella, he wants to know, can you do sex stuff when you're hooked up? And
it's certainly possible, and it's not unheard of by any means. We hear stories about it. Yeah.
That's crazy.
But
also,
it's fucking intense. It's crazy.
That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for all the pictures too. That's
you are quite welcome.
Wild. I also want to talk about if it's okay with you. You recently did something to your finger. Is that something you're willing to discuss?
Yeah, that's fine. God, you make it sound so dirty.
No. Because everybody has their. You never know what somebody is going to want to be private about. So I try and make it something that I can say to you, and you know what I'm talking about, without it making it obvious what we're talking about until you say yes, I'm okay talking about that. Anyway, so you put a magnet. You surgically inserted a magnet into your fucking index finger, right?
My ring finger, actually. It's my ring finger.
Oh,
But yes, I actually had implanted in my finger a little tiny magnet that is encased in gold and silicone. In fact, Carcer was there and was totally my emotional support person while I got that done. So he got to see all.
Who did this for you? Was this while you were at this thing for the hooking?
Yep. Yep. It was my. Yeah, it was my host piercer, and this is something I've wanted for years. And he finally was like,
"Bring it up," or did he bring it up?
I had earlier in the evening in jest when I was basically I was ribbing at him pretty good because I was like, eventually I'm going to make you pay me for coming down here and doing so much work for you. And he's like, "Oh, you're getting experience." I'm like, "Bullshit, I'm doing your job, old man." And and of course, every piercer, tattoo artist, apprentice, everybody in his shop stopped dead ass in their tracks and just stared at me like, "Oh, fuck. She really just said that to the boss." And I'm like, "Yeah, I get to say shit. What's he going to do? Take away my birthday?" But yeah, and so he was, "Hey, I appreciate everything you've done for me and all this." And he offered to sit me down and do it for me, which is banging because that's a $350 fucking procedure. So I wasn't going to tell him no.
Holy shit. You're having a magnet surgically inserted into your ring finger is $350 normal?
Yeah, at that shop, there's places it's a lot more. The magnet itself is almost $150.
So this is something that's been done for some time then, that like it's been proven that it's viable and it's not going to fuck you up or cause any long-term effects down the road.
Correct. I mean, as with all things, there are always risks. I could still reject it. I could still, there's a lot of potential for badness, like there is with any modification. Sure. But this is a procedure that was actually spearheaded and originated by Mr. Steve Hayworth, who is an incredible modifier. He really has given so much to our industry. He's based out of Phoenix, Arizona. And he actually also is responsible for the not only invention, but certainly bringing into the forefront a lot of the subdermal and transdermal implants, like where you see people with these huge horns in their head and things like that. That was from Steve Hayworth. He also really innovated the scene of electrocautery branding, which I also do. The sensory magnet implants, which this is one of the varieties of that. And in the finger, because I get asked a lot, like, well, what's the point of that? And I kind of jokingly tell people, like, shits and giggles, really, because is it going to improve my life in any notable way? Not necessarily. But is it going to be really cool to be able to watch somebody's face when they're half drunk at a bar and I'm picking up paper clips with my finger? Yeah. Secondarily, on the more interesting note, they literally refer to it as another sense because you can actually, once the magnet settles into place and you are healed, you can actually put your hand near certain devices and feel the electromagnetic field around an item.
Wild.
Which is just kind of cool. Yes, Allison, it will. But at this point, Allison, I've got so much shit in me that would fuck with those that, man, oh man, not too concerned about it. Like, that's the least of my fucking worries right now. But yes, it will interact with the imaging on things like that because it is an opaque, solid object at its core.
So what was your reasoning for wanting this done? Like, what are you, what's your intention?
Like, I thought that the electromagnetic field thing was really fucking interesting. I have an issue with going near certain devices while they're operating. Like any kind of like radio that is on around me better have a really fucking strong antenna because I get close enough to it and it will fucking just die. I don't historically do well wearing watches because they fucking die.
Really?
Yeah, so I thought that the whole EMF thing was super intriguing, and I was like, oh, I wonder how that would interact with my system because there's something about me that just likes to kill things, and that I'm aware sounded really weird. But yeah, and like, oh my god, like one year at the shop I was working at, they were trying to run the cable during the fucking Super Bowl, and my boss was super fucking pissed and literally made me leave the room because he kept getting onto the cable guys, and they were like, no, it's literally every time she walks over here, everything stops. So, yeah, It's a problem. And so far it's been interesting learning how to work this week with, no use of one of the fingers on my dominant hand. That's been a riot. As I posted in the chat a little earlier, I dropped my phone, went to catch it, caught it right on that finger, just about pissed my pants.
So why does it make you want to pee? Is it just a weird feeling?
Because fucking ouch. It fucking hurts still.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, and oh man, yesterday I accidentally, because I've been really focusing hard.
Sorry,
wow.
I'm reading chat.
Yep.
Allison's giving me shit. She's supporting you. She's like, yeah.
So because I've been making it a point, because of course it's a fucking magnet. I don't need to be getting this hand around a whole bunch of metal and shifting it while, my incision is still healing and things like that. Especially because yesterday, one of my stitches was just way too fucking tight. So I had to cut out one of my stitches yesterday. So I've been really, really having to keep an eye on it. And it's well, thank goodness. But I had to pull that one stitch. So I've been extra, extra careful with it. And so I've been really focusing on not getting that particular hand near anything that could attract that magnet. Well, last night I'm only about half paying attention and got it stuck to the zipper on my hoodie. And that was the weirdest fucking sensation I have ever experienced in my life ever. It because of the pain, because I'm still pretty bruisey and a little puffy and everything. But with the pain of just the impact of that thing like hitting my fucking very achy finger plus everything else, it was like this very interesting like tugging plus it almost felt like a little bit of a shock sensation, like just like like nothing major, but just you rubbed your feet on the carpet and then rolled up and touched somebody, like that kind of shock. And it was the weirdest fucking sensation ever. I just dropped a picture of cat literally right after my stitches were done.
Yeah,
so,
that's
there you go.
wild. That's wild. Well, you'll have to keep us updated on how that after it heals, what all you experience.
Yeah, for sure. I'm super excited about it because I don't personally know anybody has had this done, so I can go into forums.
I don't either.
But it's like it's not the same as like looking somebody in the eye and being like, watch your fucking zipper because it's going to be weird as shit.
That's funny.
Yeah, weirdest fucking sensation of my life. And like, I don't know if you have ever gotten like hand queasy, where it's like you're kind of queasy, but it's just your hands.
What?
Like,
no, I don't know anything about that.
Okay, well, I have a lot of like tactile issues in terms of like certain textures or sensations to my hands. I'm like, nope, not even a little bit. I'll nope my ass right the fuck out of any situation. But like the best way I can describe hand queasy, like it almost like you can almost feel like a vibration inside of your hand. Like after you've been like using a weed eater for too long and then you set it down, your hand's still kind of buzzy, like that weirdness. That's the closest I got for hand queasy. And it's, oh God, I do literally, instead of puking, I get and I was so hand queasy over touching that fucking zipper. Oh my fuck. Oh, it was awful. So we'll see.
Well, that's really interesting. I think that's pretty cool. You're quite the pioneer on some of this stuff, man.
Right? I don't know about all that, but I certainly am getting one step closer to being a wonderful cybernetic organism. So that's half the battle.
Hey, you know what? You can join all those trans people for trans rights protests and stuff, saying, yes, we're here, we're changed.
No, I'm good. Robots don't care about that shit.
Robot life. You're all about the robot life now?
Yeah, I'm going to be a cyborg. It's fine.
All right, that sounds cool. So now I kind of want to go into, because we're a couple hours in now. We're a little more than a couple hours in. There's a show. I want to get into the entertainment review corner of the section of the show. Before I get into what I really want to get into, I'm going to bring up a couple other things. First, I recently saw, I know it's been out for a while now, but I saw the animated movie Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Not everybody's into animation. I typically don't tend to watch animation, but I kind of, there was such controversy when that first came out. I was kind of against it because I was like, you're changing Spider-Man, now he's some half black, half Hispanic kid. What the fuck's going on? Is this more virtue signaling and shit like that? So I was kind of against it. But then, it's been out for a while. I wanted to see if it was any good. And I'm here to tell you, even if you don't like animated shows, this is hands down the best Spider-Man movie of them all. Like, it was just really good. It very entertaining, great voice casting. They got Chris Pine, they got Nick Cage, they got they got a bunch of people. A lot of actors that I know by face and don't know by name. But everybody in there is great. If you get a chance, if that's your thing, I would recommend it. And then on top of that, there's a new show called Doom Patrol, which is based on a comic book as well. It's a DC comic series. And this is supposed to be the show. Like, this is the superhero show for people who don't like superhero shows, I guess. I love it. I gave it a shot and was instantly hooked. What's his name? Frasier or Encino Man. I'm horrible with names. The guy who played Encino Man. What's his name? Christian. What is it?
Brendan Fraser. Jesus.
Brendan. Sorry, you cut out, so I didn't hear the first part. Yes, Brendan Fraser from the Mummy movies. I loved him back in the day. I grew up watching him in movies, right? So it's and he's been gone for a while because, well, that's a whole nother story. Like, he's been missing for a while because his personal life, and he had a real bad marriage, and it kind of really fucked him up. But he's back in the driver's seat, it seems. He's in this show. There's a couple other people in there that are everybody on the show. It's a really fun show. It's just fun. The storyline is good. It's funny. It's got some human element to it. It's I really like the show. And if anybody, again, is looking for something to watch, I highly recommend it. Now, there's another show that has nothing to do with comics or superheroes whatsoever, that I had no idea what it was about. I had seen a promo for it, just like a picture online, I think, like an ad, and it said "I Am the Night," and it had Chris Pine's name on it. So I was like, okay, so there's some show called "I Am the Night," and Chris Pine's in it, and I like Chris Pine. Like, I've seen the Star Trek movies. He seems all right. So I was like, all right, I'll check it out. I had no idea what the show was about. I watched the first episode and I'm clueless as to what's going on. Obviously, it's a period piece, and it takes place back in like the 50s. And there's something going on with this girl, and Chris Pine plays this journalist, and his life is ruined because of something he did 20 years prior, in regards to a story about some doctor. And somehow this young girl living in Arizona has something to do with that, and you're not quite sure what it is, but there's basically two stories going on that eventually collide. And what's more important is, not only did I not know what it was about, but it's a fucking true story. And it has to do with the Black Dahlia murders. Like, I was totally floored when I found out all of this. Like, holy shit, this is real. Like, all of this shit really happened. I'm sure the Chris Pine character didn't exist in real life. He's just a vehicle to move the story along. But the young girl in the show that it's about, Fauna Hodel, is real. Her father, or grandfather, Dr. George Hodel, is real, and that's what I really want to talk about, because it goes into Dr. George Hodel. He's kind of the antagonist of this show, and I had no idea that he was a prime suspect for the Black Dahlia murders, but it goes way deeper than that. So I should probably at this point go ahead and set up this link, because I'm going to be using his Wikipedia page. You know, have any of you heard this name? Do you know who George Hodel is? Have you heard of him?
I have not.
Hello?
No.
Okay.
Except for what you mentioned in the other chat.
Okay. This is going to be a fun. It was Ed Edwards, I tell you. I don't know who Sativa, have you heard of Dr. George Hodel?
Yes, I have.
You probably let another host talk. I've grown tired of you. You know what, Allison? I swear to God, why do you show up if you're the name of the show is House of Auger? Who do you expect to fucking talk the whole time? Do you think, you know what? We should let Joel talk the whole time. It'll just be 2.5 hours of silence,
yep.
followed by
and nope.
Yep.
And nope.
and then him saying, "Thanks a lot for showing up, everybody. Good night." And that's it. Oh my God. So let's get into this.
Allison is the kind of person that goes to Starbucks, orders a coffee, and then complains to the management about how she doesn't like coffee.
and leaves you wondering, why the fuck are you here? So, you know what, though? That's typical of the Portuguese. You know, that's how they are. That's, it's just a sad truth of life.
Apparently she's getting mad at me for using Starbucks in this hypothetical because she's from Massachusetts. What that has to do with Starbucks, I have no idea.
Oh my God. All right. So let's talk about George Hill Hodel.
Fuck Hodel.
Huh?
Fuck Hodel. It was Ed Edwards.
It wasn't Ed. I don't even know who Ed Edwards is. But
then how are you gonna say it wasn't Ed Edwards, asshole?
Well, that's why I cut myself off, you bitch.
Asterisk.
Totally. So apparently, and you may hypothesize whoever it was. You may think it was this person or that person. But the one thing that is known is that documentation has since been found from police files back then, detective files, that have listed George Hodel as the prime suspect during their investigation of the Black Dahlia murders. But it was kept silent for a multitude of reasons. And that's kind of what I want to get into. This guy's life is fucking unbelievable. This guy. So he was born October 10th, 1907. He died in 1999. He was an American physician. After the 1947 murder of Elizabeth Short, aka the Black Dahlia murders, police came to consider Hodel a suspect. He was never formally charged with the crime and came to wider attention as a suspect after his death, when he was accused by his son, who's written several books about this. He's a Los Angeles homicide detective, Steve Hodel. He was accused by his son of killing Short and committing several additional murders. His son implicates him in the murder of a couple other women that were murdered in a brutal fashion around the same time, which we'll get into that. But of other famous unsolved murders, like he says that he believes his father had something to do with, or was perhaps the suspect involved in the Zodiac killings.
Lame Ed Edwards.
What?
Lame Ed Edwards.
Oh, whatever.
I don't
They
even
have
know.
stronger links for Ed Edwards for both of those and JonBenet Ramsey. Ed Edwards.
What the fuck? All right, I'm gonna have to hear about it. We'll talk about Ed Edwards next week because that's something interesting that I haven't heard about either. So prior to the Dahlia case, he was also a suspect in the death of his secretary Ruth Spalding, but was not charged and was accused of raping his own daughter Tamar, but acquitted. Now, looking into it seems to Adele, who is the daughter of, on her birth certificate, and this is kind of what the show's about, it states that she's of mixed race, that her mother was Tamar and her father, it's written unknown Negro, because we're talking about the 40s back then. So this woman grew up believing that she was half black, and she was raised by this other woman who she thought was her mother. She didn't know until she was like 18 or 16, 17, 18, somewhere around there. She found her birth certificate and was like, "What, Mom, why is your name not on here? Who's Tamar?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry, forgot to tell you, your mom's a white woman." And she lives in Los Angeles. And I won you out of a kind of a bet kind of situation where I was like, I was just trying to get an extra tip out of these people who, I worked at this place and as a maid or something. And they were like, "We have this baby that we don't know what to do with, or we don't we want to give up." And she's like, she thought she'd get a bigger tip if she like placated them. And they handed her the baby. She was stuck with this baby. And the lady got, her husband was a minister who left her because of the kid. So now she's stuck with this, and she looks white. She looks white as white. I got to pull up a picture of Fauna Hodel. You're not going to believe, this woman thought she was half black. And I was like, how the fuck could anybody think that? I don't know. There's just no way to me that it makes sense when you see her. Here, I'm going to put her up right now. There's a picture of her. This woman, and let me show you what she looks like today, and you tell me if she looks half black to you. I just don't know how anybody could see or believe like, oh yeah, I'm totally mixed race. Bitch, you're as white as they come.
If Elizabeth Warren can be convinced that she's Native American, anybody can be convinced of any race.
Right. I guess that's true. So she goes, here's my theory. The show hasn't gotten into this, but I believe that when you look up Fauna Hodel and you look up her lineage, like her parentage, like who's your dad? Who's your daddy and what does he do? There's nobody listed. Like it kind of goes, it just stays unknown, right? I think the implication here is that George Hodel really did fuck his daughter, and this woman is the byproduct of that. Fauna Hodel is her granddad, is also her father. That's my take on it. I don't know if that's true. I could be wrong. Maybe it was some unknown Negro. I don't know. But yeah, that's pretty wild. On top of that, going back to George Hodel, he has fled the country several times and spent 1950 to 1990 in the Philippines, where there were several murders that took place that he is believed to be a suspect of as well. Oh my God, this guy's life is fucking insane. His parents were of Russian Jewish ancestry. He was their only son, highly intelligent. He was listed as scoring 186 on an early IQ test. He was a musical prodigy. He played solo piano concerts at Los Angeles' Shrine Auditorium. Rachmaninoff traveled to hear the boy play. Some say that Rachmaninoff even taught the boy to some extent. I don't know. Or George Hodel when he was a boy. Hodel attended South Pasadena High School, graduated at age 15, and entered the prestigious Caltech in Pasadena. He was forced to leave the university after 1 year, possibly due to a sex scandal involving a professor's wife, though this is not the only account. By around 1928, Hodel was in a common law marriage with a woman named Amelia and had a son by her, Duncan. In the 1930s, he was legally married to a model from San Francisco, Dorothy Anthony, and had a daughter by her, Tamar. Hodel graduated from Berkeley Pre-Med in June 1932 and enrolled in medical school at the University of California, San Francisco immediately afterwards, and received his medical degree in June of 36. After the establishment and success of his medical practice, Hodel was moving in affluent Los Angeles society by the 1940s. He was enamored, and this is the interesting part. He was enamored. It's all fucking interesting, but this might kind of be the backdrop for where his motive for these murders, if he indeed is responsible for the Black Dahlia murder, if he did murder his that Spalding girl, his secretary, all of these, and if he murdered any of these other people, this might be sort of the motive behind it. And the show kind of paints it that way too, when they deal with the character of George Hodel. He was enamored of the darker side of surrealism and the decadence surrounding that art scene. He was heavily involved in it and was friends with such artists as photographer Man Ray, film director John Huston, and those who associated with them. With Ray and some other surrealists, he shared an interest in sadomasochism and the darker side of art and philosophy. With the young men of the Hollywood scene, he shared a fondness for partying, inebriation, and skirt chasing. Hodel's second legal wife was Huston's ex-wife, Dorothy, who changed her name to Doreros, I think. I don't know what the fuck kind of nickname that is. At least within their circle, that's what they called her. But it's better known to the press as Dorothy Huston Hodel. And they married in 1940. Hodel purchased the Sowden house, I think, Sowden or Sowden, which Lloyd Wright, son of Frank Lloyd Wright, built this house in 1926 for a Dr. Sowden back then. It's a beautiful house. If you haven't seen it, it's fucking gorgeous. It's a real trip. It's since been registered as a Los Angeles landmark. It's featured in the show. Hodel was effectively a polygamist in this large household. In the late 40s, during the period of the deaths of Spalding and Short and the alleged sexual assaults on his daughter, Hodel was living with Dorothy, or Doreros. What the fuck? I want to call her Dorito. I think that would have been a better nickname. And you know what? I think I'm going to change. I'm going to make that a thing from now on. Any girl I get together with, that's going to be my term of endearment, my little Dorito. Especially, that makes sense because I'm in California and there's a lot of Mexicans. So anyway, Dorothy and their 3 children, including Stephen, who would later write books outlining a case to prove George Hodel a murderer, he lived with his first legal wife, Dorothy Anthony, and their daughter, Tamar, and at times with his original common law wife, Amelia, mother of Hodel's eldest child, who was an adult by that time. He was also prone to taking a series of temporary lovers. Multiple witnesses later suggested such a relationship between Hodel and Elizabeth Short. So there is, on the books, there is definitely a relationship. Like at one point, George Hodel and Elizabeth Short were dating. Apparently right around, or just like they were either still dating when she was murdered or just recently broke up, from what I understand. Hodel left the United States for Manila, Philippines in March 1950, where he married an upper-class Filipino woman, Hortensia Laguda. They divorced in the 60s. He returned to the States in 90, married legally for the 4th time. That's impressive because he's old as fuck in 1990. And he was able to nab another one, especially considering his history. Like, either she knew nothing about his connections to all of this death and murder, or she knew and didn't give a fuck. Either way, that's impressive. The guy's got game. He was married to a woman named June in San Francisco in 1990, where he remained for the rest of his life. He died in 1999 of heart failure. The fact that this man has been implicated in so much and managed to avoid, like, one of the things that they haven't touched on is why he kind of was left alone during their investigation of the Black Dahlia murders back in the 40s. He was running an illegal abortion clinic that celebrities, judges, and police were patients of. Like they would bring their wives to him. So he had connections and had dirt on these people. At least that's what is alleged. He definitely was running this illegal abortion clinic. These were supposedly some of his clients, and that's why when he became implicated as a suspect, it was just kind of hushed away. Hodel first came under suspicion for murder in 1945 following the death of his secretary, Ruth Spalding, by a drug overdose. He was suspected of having murdered her in order to cover up his financial fraud, such as billing patients for tests that were never performed, to protect various valuable secrets he had obtained about police and politicians from clients for his illegal abortion services. At about this time, Hodel left briefly for China, where he had earlier worked with the United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration. These events first came to public attention in 2004. In 1947, the body of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short, discovered in an empty lot, Lambert Park, neighborhood of Los Angeles. Short had suffered gruesome mutilation, notably her body being cut in half at the waist. The case earned major publicity and prompted one of the largest investigations in the history of the LA Police Department. The case was never solved. However, authorities at the time interviewed hundreds of suspects, one of whom was George Hill Hodel Jr. Various aspects of the case have suggested a strong connection to surrealism, including the works of Man Ray in particular, which, as was mentioned earlier, George Hill was a huge, he was a friend of and also interested in his work. In late 1949, Hodel's teenage daughter, Tamar, accused him of incestuous sexual abuse. He was acquitted after a widely publicized trial. I don't know too much regarding the details of that case. But right off the top, my first question is, if there's not incestuous sexual abuse happening, why, especially back then in the 40s, why would somebody lie about that? You know what I mean? I guess. Am I still there? Am I? Hello?
Yeah, you're still here.
Oh, okay.
Here and
I thought for a second there I got kicked, and I was like, "Shit, are we back to that? How long have I been talking to myself?" No. So I don't know why. My instinct is to say, well, then this was happening. The Occam's razor is there. The simplest answer is there's no reason to fucking accuse somebody of incest or sexual abuse unless that's happening, especially back then. So how he got acquitted, I don't know. I'm curious, and I have to do some more research because I'd love to know how that trial went and what was responsible for his acquittal. Like, did they not have enough evidence? Was there something to contradict the evidence they did have? I don't know. It's just really curious to me how he managed to sidestep that. Hodel came to police attention as a suspect for the Elizabeth Short murder in 1949 after the sexual abuse trial, since known or suspected sex criminals in the area were being investigated first, and it had come out in that trial that Tamar had allegedly claimed that her father was the Dahlia killer. So now she's claiming, like, first it was he's sexually abusing me, now she's confirming, like, yeah, my grandfather's killing people. Like, it just, how many times does somebody have to yell fire? Like before somebody goes, okay, seriously, something's going on over here. Like this, we can't just continue to dismiss all of this. It's too many times that somebody keeps pointing the finger at this guy. I don't know. That's my take on it. Hodell's medical agree also aroused suspicion, given the hypothesis that whoever bisected Short's body had some degree of surgical skill. At least 8 witnesses claimed firsthand knowledge of a 1946 relationship between Short and Hodell, then back in Los Angeles from China. The full details of the investigation came to light only in 2004 when a George Hodell Black Dahlia file was discovered in the vault at the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. The file revealed that in 1950, Hodell was the prime suspect of the Dahlia murder. His private Hollywood residence was electronically bugged. I didn't even know they could do that back then. Like, they had bugs? How big were they? Like, what did an electronic listening device look like from 1950? Was it the size of a Buick? Like how big? I'm just curious to know what they, how big a bug was back then. I don't know. So it was his private Hollywood residence was electronically bugged by an 18-man. Apparently, it took 18 men to listen in. I don't know if it took 18 men to put the bugs in or to then work the bugs and listen in. I don't know. But it was an 18-man task force during the period of February 15th to March 17th, 1950. The transcript, here's the fucking killer part, dude. Like, how the transcripts of conversations revealed Hodell's references to performing illegal abortions, giving payoffs to law enforcement officials, and to his possible involvement in the deaths of his secretary and Elizabeth Short. The DA tapes recorded him saying, and I quote, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia, they can't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead. They thought there was something fishy. Anyway, now they may have figured it out. Killed her. Maybe I did kill my secretary." Like, and this guy wasn't brought in and immediately fucking, like, how do you hear that and then not go, all right, put him in cuffs? Like, what the fuck? What's happening here? How did this fucking not end up with him in jail? So Hodell was also interviewed as a suspect in the nearby June 1949 murder of Louise Springer, also known as the Green Twig murder. Though evidence to support this accusation was not publicly available until July of 2018. Fucking last year. Wow. In October of 1949, George Hodell's name was mentioned in a formal written report to the grand jury as one of 5 prime suspects in the Short murder. 1 of 5. Like, you're in the top 5 of people being suspected of fucking doing this. And then that's not even considering your list of other shit you're involved in. Like, there's other murders that you're suspected in. You're fucking doing illegal abortions. You're fucking your own daughter. Like, dude, what is going on? This guy is either protected by Jesus or Satan. Like, what's going the fuck on? But none of the named suspects were submitted to the grand jury for consideration for indictment. As the investigation was still ongoing, by April 50, Lieutenant Jemison had gathered enough evidence to charge Hodell and was about to arrest him for the Short murder when Hodell again left the United States. So, like, there was a period where apparently they had enough evidence, and he was like, "Nah, I'm just gonna bounce." Living in the Philippines, he started a new family there. Like, this guy, fuck me. Like, the fact that he does it, this is literally like, I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want and I don't give a fuck and nobody's gonna stop me. And it worked. Like, that never works for anybody, and it worked for this guy. And that's impressive. I don't condone any of the things that he did or that he suspected of doing if he actually did them. But god damn, like, talk about luck being on your side. He started a new family and appears to have remained in the Philippines until 1990. Died in 99, San Francisco. Blah, blah, blah. So after George Hodell died in 99, his son Steve, a former LAPD homicide detective, wanted to learn more about his father. During that process, he uncovered information that led him to believe his father was, in fact, Elizabeth Short's killer. His investigation began with the discovery of a photo album owned by George Hodel, which contained a portrait of a dark-haired young woman whom Steve Hodel believed was Elizabeth Short. During Steve Hodel's investigation, he learned that his father may have been responsible for more than one murder. God damn, dude. Like, your daughter's accusing you of shit. Your son's fucking writing books about how you fucking did it. And he's a fucking LA detective. Like, how? I can't wait to read about Ed Edwards, because everything that I'm reading about this guy, it's like, holy shit, it's in the bag. Like, how could it not be this guy? Steve Hodel also suspected his father of being the Chicago lipstick killer of the late 40s, the Manila Jigsaw murderer of 1967, and even the San Francisco Zodiac killer of the late 1960s, among other such crimes. The guy's written like 3 fucking books, all about the shit that his dad did. Like, holy fuck. A September 2006 episode of Cold Case Files, hosted by Bill Curtis, illustrates the mixed reaction to Steve Hodel's hypothesis, as outlined in his first book, Black Dahlia Avenger, which came out in 2003. So some people disagree with his findings. Head Deputy District Attorney, and this, I'm including this stuff. Normally I would skip past it, but I'm including this because I know Joel will appreciate the, the contradictory, the other side of things, just to keep things balanced, level, even keel. Head Deputy District Attorney Stephen Cade described himself as highly impressed by Steve Hodel's research and conclusions, and even went so far as to declare the case had been solved. However, others had noted that Kay, who has since retired, formed this conclusion by treating Steve Hodel's many disputed assertions as established fact. Less impressed was active Detective Brian Carr, the LAPD officer then in charge of the Black Dahlia case, which was still officially open. Carr's opinion was that Hodel's theory was based on a few intriguing facts linked together by unsubstantiated. Short's relatives also disagreed that the photos in Hodel's album were of Short. Carr added that if he ever took a case as weak as Steve Hodel's to a prosecutor, he would be laughed out of the office. Carr, admitting that he had not read all of Steve Hodel's materials, how are you making most of those accusations then? Like, yeah, I would be laughed out of court if I took that stuff. Oh, so you read all that stuff? No, I didn't read any of that stuff. You fucking asshole. What are you talking about? He added, I don't have the time to either prove or disprove Hodel's investigation. Then how? You're an asshole. Like, fuck you and your opinion. You're talking about, I don't think he makes the case. Oh, so what about the information in the book? Do you dispute? I don't know. I didn't read those books. Fuck you, dude. Anyway, I don't have the time to either prove or disprove Hodel's investigation. I'm too busy working on active cases. All right, then shut the fuck up. Steve Hodel has since produced 2 additional books on the Dahlia case and several books on the Zodiac killer and other cases, attempting to link them to his father. I will say this. The fact that this guy has written so many books, all trying to connect his father, like, there may be a bit of a psychological hook or hang up there. Like, there's a slight feel of like, you really hate your dad. Like, you're going way out of your way just to fucking like fuck your dad's memory over or implicate. Like, it might be a little too much. Like, did your dad kill Kennedy too? Who else do you want to fucking imply or implicate him in? So in the years following George Hodel's leaving the country, investigators from both the LAPD and the district attorney office privately stated that they believed the Black Dahlia case was solved and that Hodel was the killer, though they didn't have enough evidence to go to trial. Specific quotes from the top brass include the following. Chief of Detectives Tad Brown. Do you say Thad or Tad with a THAD? Good talk. The Black Dahlia case was solved. He was a doctor who lived on Franklin Avenue in Hollywood. Am I still there? Are you guys still listening? Should I shut up?
I mean, we're kind of listening.
Oh, we're here. We're listening. I'm listening, even if I'm wrong.
Says.
Even if I'm wrong. Okay. let me take a moment out of this because I don't want to just make this into a fucking seminar or a lecture of any kind. Let's talk about, with everything I've said so far, you don't think any of that holds any water?
No, I think it was Ed Edwards.
What about Ed Edwards? Who is Ed Edwards, and why do you think he was responsible?
Because he was. So no, Ed Edwards is another serial killer. And he is literally, like, there are a couple of people who have done all the footwork and everything to link him to literally everyone from the Black Dahlia to the Zodiac murders to JonBenet Ramsey. It is crazy fucking interesting, and you should definitely do some reading up on it over the next week so that we can totally have this talk. The whole thing, here's my biggest thing with Ya Doctor Man is that for all of the, we think it might have been him, it might have been him. Like, it's been how many fucking years? Come on. I can't buy that by this point we haven't had something that was like, yes, this is our thing. And it's probably because they honestly ended up with a bit of tunnel vision because they became so convinced that it was Dr. Hodel that they didn't bother to really look at anybody else.
But even with what I've been saying, they've already made it clear that's not the case. There were several people they were looking at that they narrowed down to 25, and of the top 5 of that 25, George Hodel was one of those 5. I don't know where Edwards fits on that, or if he was even involved in the. I mean, were they looking at Edwards back then? God, no. Okay, so this is something. Part. So what can? God, I'm gonna have to look it up. All right, I don't want to. This is definitely something that I'm interested in discussing next week. The Ed Edwards.
Too. It's so interesting.
See, here there's literal investigation. They're bugging him. You've quotes of him saying, basically that he's involved. You had a detective who was going to come forward with enough, evidence to charge him, and before he could, he fled the country. And then his list of crimes that he's suspected of being involved in outside of that or before any of that, like, this is, even if he didn't do the Black Dahlia shit, the fact that he is such a shady individual that they thought he did, and then all the shit that he was involved, like, this is a fucked up dude. Like, it's awe-inspiring how fucking twisted this guy's life has been.
Oh yeah, dude's interesting as shit.
Like, this dude's I didn't know anything. I knew nothing about this guy until I delved into that show, and then I did, I looked into it some more,
right,
and found out all this information, and I was like, holy shit. So,
yeah, see, and for me, like, I was totally subscribed to the Hodel theory until I started looking into Ed Edwards, and literally I was like, what the fuck, this is a possibility. So yeah, check it out, it's super fucking interesting.
Okay, will do. So this goes on for quite some time. Well, no, I mean, there's a bit more that he gets implicated in. Like I said, there were some murders that happened in the Philippines during his time living there that he is, at least his son believes he was implicated and responsible for. He gets compared to the Zodiac killer. The guy's, it's just a wild fucking story. It's a great show. I recommend to anybody who likes this kind of stuff, go watch it. It's a good show. I'm fascinated that I've never heard of this guy before. Like, you'd heard of him before?
Have we met, Augie? Yes, I've heard of him before.
Are you really surprised?
I'm not. I was just asking.
The serial killer obsessed person knows about unsolved murder cases.
So do you, well, my curiosity, if you don't believe he was involved in the Black Dahlia murders, do you believe he's innocent of all these other crimes as well?
Oh, fuck no. He was definitely up to no good somewhere along the board. I just think that he was
You're
kind of...
hooked on Ed Edwards.
I think that Hodel was the easy, obvious answer for Black Dahlia, and there's no way that was that easy. There's no fucking way it was that easy, and they fucked it up anyway. No fucking way.
I had read that, and this is one of the things that kind of makes me think, well, that makes sense. His secretary was killed before Elizabeth Short. That murder happened before, and like I said, he was implicated in that, but he wasn't charged or brought in. He wasn't charged with that murder. From what I understand, Hodel goes to China to work with the UN on his, their hospital shit. And while he's there, Elizabeth Short goes to Arizona, I think, and starts looking into and asking questions about this secretary, Spaulding. And that somehow that information that she's snooping around got back to Hodel, and that he quit what he was doing for the UN in China and heads back almost immediately to the States. And shortly after he comes back from China, Elizabeth Short ends up dead, found in that lot. And that the timing of that just seems so, it's too perfect. You know what I mean? Like that's a hard sell for me to say that's just coincidence. You know, like they were dating, he leaves, she starts asking questions, he comes back. He cut his time short. It's not like he was scheduled, like his stint over there was done. No. He cut short. He was like, I gotta go. And that was it. And headed back to LA. Never gave a reason why. And then boom, she's dead. I'm not a believer in coincidence, man. That seems pretty
Neither am I, but if you're the first, if you're one of the first motherfuckers they're looking at, I mean, Jesus Christ, if it was those days and we don't have fucking video tracking and all that shit like we do now, fuck yeah, I'm leaving the goddamn country. Eat a dick. You people are never going to see me again, because the next place I go, maybe I'll make it worth all the heat I'm facing here. Fuck them. I'm just saying it's possible.
Right.
But they've already got the Zodiac's DNA processing, so we may have an answer to at least that piece of the riddle.
It's just fascinating. It's times like this that I wish there was a way you could like peek into the past, like this is what I would use a time machine for, to go back.
Oh my God, same.
At these things to see exactly what happened, who was responsible. Like I want to solve all these. I need to know. I want to know.
I'd go back and tell Ted Bundy that he is not permitted under any circumstances to let Carol DeRange go. I'd tell that motherfucker, no man, this one, you can stop dead in your tracks right fucking here. I don't care. This one has got to go.
That's too funny. Yeah, the riddle, like, where is Hitler now? You know what? I don't entirely discount the possibility that Hitler really did fake his death and bounced. I mean, it's not impossible. I don't know that it did happen, but plenty of Nazis and or former Nazis fled to Venezuela, or not Venezuela, Brazil.
They're obviously all in
Colombia.
Antarctica. Augie. Jesus
Argentina.
Christ, you're not even up with your conspiracy.
What are you talking about?
All the Nazis are in Antarctica. Everybody knows.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
But everybody knows.
Yeah, that's no. They're on the moon. What are you talking about?
No, they're not on the moon. Now you're just talking silly.
God, you guys believe in the moon?
Bold of you to assume there is a moon, Augie.
Exactly.
That's too funny. Well, you know what? You stole Joel's thunder. That was supposed to be Joel who comes in and one-ups my fucking conspiracy theories.
Shit, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah,
I know, but
you fucked up.
Forever.
You're fucking
Somebody
up. You're getting me fired up, Joel. Where are you, buddy? We were friends.
It's actually about time to call the show. It's after 11 now.
That's Joel's speak for, I'm sick of this. None of this is interesting and I'm tired. So please stop it there. I just want to say, before we cut out, one last time, for anybody who wasn't here at the beginning, there's been a lot of changes to this Discord server. I've added a lot of new things. I'm not going to go over all of that again, but it was at the beginning of the show. It will be on the recording to YouTube, hopefully, at some point. But if you have questions, you can always hit me up in the show chat and ask questions. I'll be happy to clarify what those changes are and why. Except for Allison, I'm not going to answer any of her questions. So if you're not Allison, you're more than welcome to ask me questions. Why not? I'm not answering that question. I just told you I'm not answering your questions. Anyway, so thank you to everyone. That's all the time we have. Once again, we did not hit all of our marks. We didn't hit all of the topics, but we got a good number of them out of there. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to my co-hosts for being a part of this. As always, this show is dedicated. The show and episode are dedicated to Noah Valdez. Much love, and good night and go home.